You were reincarnated as a small tree in a primitive world, enduring bird poop hitting your face every single day. However, thousands of years passed just like that, and during those millennia, you grew from a tiny sapling into a massive towering tree. You thought your life would just keep being this boring, until one day you saved a primitive man. 3 months have passed since you rescued him. Suddenly you're woken up by a strange commotion. Right there beneath your massive trunk, a huge crowd of people dressed in animal skins appeared. Just as you're wondering where they all came from, you spot the very man you saved earlier. He steps forward slowly. The man walks right up to you and drops to his knees. He looks up at you, the ancient tree, with pure devotion. He starts chanting in a language you can't understand, kowtowing and bowing his head to you as he speaks. Everyone behind him follows suit, bowing low. After a while, the man finally stops talking, but he and his stay there kneeling on the ground, without moving for a long time. At first, you're just standing there, well-rooted, they're confused. But after a bit, it starts to click. You control your leaves to make a rustling sound. The moment they hear it, they all scramble to their feet and erupt into wild, joyful cheers, even though you don't speak their language. Their happiness is contagious, and it actually feels pretty good. So the tribe begins to set up camp right by your trunk, and they make this place their home. You start observing them curiously, watching these people who now live under your protection. That man you saved before, he seems to be the leader of the whole group. He often leads the men out on hunts, and every time they bring a kill back to the tribe, the man cuts out the heart of the prey and places it right at the foot of your trunk. At first you had no idea what he was doing, but then it dawned on you. This is a ritual, they're worshiping you, and that heart, that's your sacred. Just like that, you've become the guardian god of this tribe. To these tribespeople, I suppose, a prey's heart was the most sacred thing they owned. That's why they used them as offerings to the ancient tree. After the ritual, they never took the hearts back, just leaving them to sit right there at your roots. Now your trunk was special. Not even a single bug would dare crawl on you. So as time passed, those hearts would just shrivel up and dry out. You thought these dried up hearts looked a bit unsightly, so you willed your roots to push upward until they finally broke through the soil. Just like that, you could use those roots to drag those withered hearts deep into the dirt. When those tribespeople saw their offerings vanish into thin air, it sparked an immediate panic. That man quickly led his people to fall to their knees before you, bowing their heads over and over again. Not until you rustled your leaves to make a sound did they finally stand up, letting out a huge sigh of relief. Rituals kept happening after that, and every night you'd quietly bury those hearts underground. After this happened a few more times, the tribe got used to it, and their devotion to you grew even stronger. Every once in a while, led by their chief, they'd hold a massive ceremony for the entire tribe. You watched them for several years, and you finally picked up their language. At last, you didn't have to worry about being left in the dark when they spoke. During yet another ritual, that man you had saved brought his people to the base of your trunk. By listening to them talk, you learned his name was Shi Feng. These folks didn't have last names, just a single name. Whenever a baby was born, they'd just pick the first thing they laid eyes on, tweak it a little, and call it a name. As for this man's name, it literally meant the peak to the east. Shi Feng walked right up to you. He held up a blood-slicked heart he'd just ripped out of a wild boar. Chanting under, he offered the organ to you. He was basically begging for the ancient tree's protection, praying for the tree to bless them with more game, praying for the tree to keep them all safe and sound. He asked you to watch over the newborns, and the elderly too. It honestly made you scoff. These people, they really expect you to handle everything for them. You didn't even realize you were supposed to be this talented. But some of those requests, you could actually pull them off, like keeping them safe from plagues and sickness, since you naturally repel all kinds of nasty bugs. These guys living under your shade actually stayed pretty healthy. In the blink of an eye, 10 years flashed by. The little tribe living beneath your branches had slowly started to thrive. Starting from just over 30 people, they'd grown to about 50 or so. Then one day, the hunting party came back much earlier than usual. But they weren't carrying any meat. They were carrying Shi Feng, after all, and he'd lost his life in a scrap with a leopard. The tribe buried his body just a few steps away from your trunk. Shi Feng was gone. A much stronger man took over as the new chief. His name was Mu. Even with a change in leadership, their worship of you didn't skip a beat. If anything, they were doing it even more often. One day after another ritual sacrifice, you suddenly felt something strange stirring deep inside you. It definitely wasn't some wood-boring beetle. It was a new kind of power that you could actually control. Right now, this energy was pretty faint, even though you could move it around. You had no clue what you were supposed to do with it, so you decided to spend some time testing it out. You still haven't figured out what to do with this power yet. After another ritual sacrifice was held, you noticed that strange energy had grown a bit stronger. Could this be the legendary power of faith people talk about? That's the only theory that makes. This energy definitely surged right after the ceremony. Maybe it really is that kind of power. So you decided to keep digging. Before long, you were certain of your hunch. This energy was definitely manifested from pure faith. But what the heck are you supposed to use it for? Without a teacher around, you had to fumble through it on your own. You tried channeling this energy into one of your branches, just to see what kind of reaction it would trigger. But as the power flowed in, you were disappointed to see that absolutely nothing happened. On top of that, you didn't have much of this energy to begin with. You ended up draining yourself in no time, so you gave up on the experiments for the time being. A good while later, the power inside your body finally started building up again. Naturally, you decided to give it another shot. This time, you poured in way more energy than you did before. Slowly but surely, you started noticing a change. That one branch you'd been pumping energy into was starting to learn from the rest. Right there at the very tip of the branch, a tiny little sprout began to poke out. You were positive this wasn't just some ordinary tree bud. As the little sprout grew bit by bit, you finally realized exactly what it was. It was a flower bud. It looked like you were finally going to bloom. You were absolutely blown away. You'd been this tree for at least several hundred years now, and in all that time you'd never once produced a flower. You honestly thought blooming just wasn't in the cards for you, but now it turns out you were wrong. Suddenly your curiosity was through the roof. You took every drop of the power of faith you'd gathered and dumped it all straight into that flower bud. You wanted to see what kind of flower would open up, and if it would eventually bear any fruit. The bud grew larger and larger day by day. You carefully tucked it away behind some thick leaves. From down on the ground, it was impossible to spot. Meanwhile, as for those primitive, besides, they never even crawl onto your body. You aren't the least bit worried about being found out either. 1 year passes by, and during this whole time, you've focused every bit of your energy on that single flower. After 1 full year of nurturing it, you can tell that the flower is finally about to bloom. Along with a gentle fragrance, the flower finally opens. It's a pure snow-white blossom, with 5 petals blooming around the stamen. The flower isn't that big, only about the size of an adult's palm. At the very center of it sits a fresh green embryo. You have a feeling that this flower is likely a self-pollinating variety. Once it's in full bloom, a thick, rich aroma begins to spread everywhere. Below the tree, the entire tribe is suddenly bathed in the scent of flowers. All the tribespeople come rushing out, looking around in a total daze, clearly having no idea what's happening. Kuroki runs out as well, and as the chief, he's at first. Suddenly, he looks up at that towering tree. If there's anything in this area capable of giving off such a wonderful smell, it has to be the ancient tree that protects their tribe. Kuroki immediately calls out to everyone, leading the whole tribe to the base of the tree, where they all drop to their knees in unison. They begin to worship the ancient tree with everything they have. In an instant, you feel a massive surge of power within your body. This strength is far greater than anything that came from their previous sacrifices. You start to suspect that this power might be directly tied to how much these people truly believe in you. The more devoutly they worship, the more power you seem to gain. In the hearts of these primitive people, this overwhelming floral fragrance, it was this very ancient tree before them showing its divine power once again. You took every drop of this newly awakened energy all into that single flower. Instantly, its fragrance became even more intoxicating, and the primitive people kneeling on the ground below began to worship you with even more feverish devotion. Suddenly, an old man in the crowd lifted his hands in utter disbelief. Those palms, once withered and covered in wrinkles, were actually turning smooth and rosy right before his eyes. And it wasn't just his skin. He felt his long-lost vitality slowly returning to his veins. His aging body was literally growing younger. The moment he realized what was happening, he broke into tears and cried out, "The great tree has shown its grace. The great tree has shown its grace." Himu quickly noticed the change as well. He slammed his head against the ground and shouted, "My fellow tribesmen, quickly bow down and worship the great tree. This fragrance is a divine blessing bestowed upon our tribe. The great tree is using its own power to grant us bodies that never wither, and to gift us strength." As Himu's voice echoed through the air, the rest of the tribesmen also began to feel the incredible changes in their own bodies. In that instant, the reverence these people held for you soared to a whole new level. Then Himu suddenly stood up, raising both hands high above his head. He looked up at you and shouted, "Oh, mighty ancient tree! I beg you to become our sacred totem, and I pray that you grant us your holy name. We will offer you sacrifices for generations to come. We will worship you alone, and we will spread your name across every corner of this land." Having said his piece, Haimu fell to his knees once more. Every single tribesman fell silent, kneeling in absolute stillness, not daring to make a sound. You looked down at this crowd of people. By all accounts, these people could now be considered your true believers. You spent a moment in deep thought, considering the idea of becoming their totem. It's good for you. So you gave your trunk a little shake, letting out a loud rhythmic rustle. The moment he heard it, Haimu's head snapped up. With a look of pure devotion in his eyes, he shouted at the top of his lungs, "The ancient tree has agreed. From this day on, the ancient tree is our totem. We are the tree tribe." The tribesmen behind him joined in the roar. Tree tribe, tree tribe. You were feeling pretty stoked yourself. After grinding for hundreds of years, you finally made a name for yourself. You took some of that newly gained power and funneled it straight into your flowers, releasing waves of intoxicating fragrance. You watched closely as the primitives below began to change, bathed in the essence of your scent. The bodies of everyone in the tribe started transforming in their own way. The elderly looked a bit more youthful, and the young men grew visibly stronger. The kids didn't seem to change much on the surface, but the impact on them was actually the deepest. They grow up. They'll be far stronger than anyone else, healthier, tougher, and way sharper. You quickly reined in the scent after that. You couldn't have these people idling around forever. They still had to get back to their daily survival. As the sun climbed high into the sky, you opened your blossoms once more. This time you kept the fragrance in check, letting out only the tiniest hint of perfume. You were just waiting for the petals to wither, so you could finally see what kind of fruit you'd bear. You weren't worried about it failing either. Your flowers were clearly anything but ordinary. You didn't need to follow the laws of nature, fruit was a guarantee. But just then, you caught a faint buzzing sound, drifting in from the distance. It sounded like a swarm of mosquitoes, and it was seriously starting to annoy you. Instinctively, you turned toward the source of the noise, wanting to swing your branches like arms and swat it away. You forgot you don't have hands anymore, but the swinging motion happened anyway. A branch whipped out, and you felt like you swatted something. No way was that actually a mosquito. But then you remembered. Your body is supposed to naturally repel bugs. This mosquito didn't stay away at all. Instead, it kept coming right at you. You focused your attention, looking toward where you just felt the impact. At first, you didn't see a thing, but soon enough you spotted it. A little yellow honeybee, wobbling as it struggled to fly off the ground. It started zigzagging its way back toward you again. This time you didn't swat him away. You just watched as he slowly drifted closer. He ducked through the leaves, heading straight for that single flower on your body. It finally clicked. The bee was drawn in by the flower you just bloomed. Plop, the bee landed right next to it. Then he started crawling toward the petals, looking like he was dead set on getting some nectar. You controlled a branch and gave him a sharp whack. But even after taking a hit, the stubborn little guy just kept crawling back for more. Smack, smack, smack after a few more hits. The bee finally seemed to snap out of it. He shook his head dazed, thinking, "Wait, where am I? Oh right, I caught a whiff of something sweet, and I just had to get some nectar. Wait, nectar!" He looked around frantically, and immediately spotted your blooming flower again. He charged right back at it, shouting, "Here I come, my little flower!" You were totally speechless. All you could do was give him another good whipping. This time the bee finally settled down. He actually noticed the branch that was beating him. You figured he'd finally take the hint and leave, but instead he actually decided to move in. This has you feeling a bit confused. Isn't your trunk supposed to naturally ward off insects? So why hasn't this bee been driven away yet? Maybe your pest control power has its limits, and you just haven't quite figured out the trick. You didn't actually try to kick the bee out, though, if you really wanted to. All it would take is one quick flick of a branch to easily send that little guy packing. But you sensed something different about this bee, so you let him set up shop and make a home on your trunk. Every day the bee flies off into the distance, presumably out looking for something to eat. Then like clockwork he buzzes back every evening. Even though he's moved in, he's still totally obsessed with that flower you bloomed. He keeps trying to sneak up on it at all hours of the day, but you catch him every single time. You usually give him a sharp smack with a twig to back him off. After a while you even start to wonder, is this bee some kind of glutton for punishment? Another month passes by, and the flower you worked so hard on finally begins to wither. 5 snow-white petals drift toward the ground, but you manage to catch every single one with your branches. Once the petals are gone, A small green unripe fruit is left behind, though it just sprouted from the flower. This fruit is already half the size of a fist. It's got you feeling pretty hyped. You can't help but wonder what it'll look like once it's finally ripe and ready. And more importantly, what kind of powers will it have? After all, if the flower alone could boost the tribesman's strength, then the fruit growing from it is bound to be something legendary. That bee is still living on you too, even though the flower has already faded away. He occasionally circles around your trunk, almost like he's a guard patrolling his own territory. You just let him do his thing. Then one day, a massive argument suddenly erupts within the tree tribe. Two groups are facing off against each other, both sides desperately trying to force the other to see things their way. We gotta kick those people out of here. The ancient tree belongs to our tribe and our tribe only. No other group is laying their hands on it. We should just wipe them all out. That tree should be ours and own. But the other group wasn't having it. They're just passing by our territory, that's all. Just let them leave and be done with it. Why are we even looking for a fight? Remember when we were the ones migrating? We had to cross through other tribes' lands too, and none of them ever laid a finger on us. We can't go around doing stuff like this. Don't compare us to them. Back then, every time we crossed through someone's land, we made sure to get out as fast as we could. But these guys, they actually had the nerve to set up a whole camp right on our turf. They're definitely trying to take over this land. We've got to take them out before it's too late. As you're eavesdropping on them, you start to figure out what all the shouting is about. Kuroki is just sitting there between the two bickering groups, not saying a single word. So the two sides just keep at it, both of them desperate to get him on their side. C is the chief of the tree tribe. The second he picks a side, this whole argument is over. Chief, what do you think we should do? Finally, someone puts him right on the spot. Kuroki's got his own ideas brewing in his head, but he's still a bit torn on what to do. Kuroki waves them off and says, "This is a huge deal for our tribe, and it's just as important for the ancient tree. I'm going to ask the ancient tree for the answer." The second they hear he's seeking the tree's guidance, everyone just shuts right up. I mean, yeah, if the chief can't decide, why not just ask the ancient tree directly? Listening from the outside, you're totally stunned. How did this suddenly become your problem to solve? But the real kicker is, even if they do ask, it's not like you can answer them anyway. Sure, you can understand what these people are saying, but you're stuck being unable to speak a single word. If these folks actually had a written language, you could at least control a branch to write things down and answer their questions that way. But here's the kicker. These primitive people don't have a written language. It's not that they're too dumb to learn. It's just that it hasn't even been invented yet. You start thinking to yourself, man, if only I could talk. When humans and animals speak, it seems like it's all about making sounds through vibrations. Then it hits you like a bolt of lightning, of course. Vibrations, even though you're just a tree trunk, you can definitely still vibrate. And shouldn't those vibrations be able to produce sound? I mean, yeah, you're a tree trunk, but you can definitely make yourself vibrate. And that should be enough to create some kind of sound, right? You're starting to get all excited, but then you immediately shoot yourself down. No, that won't work. Vibrations alone aren't going to cut it. At most, you can only control a single branch, and by tapping it against your own body, all you'd get is a thump 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 noise. That's a far cry from actual talking. You keep pondering the problem. The organs humans use to speak are located in the throat. You remember that when air from the lungs passes through the cords, those cords vibrate to create specific sounds. The only thing you're missing is a set of vocal cords. So why not just grow one yourself? With that idea in mind, you start experimenting. You pick a small branch and begin to force its growth. You tap into a portion of that power of faith. Once you get a handle on this energy, it can make your branches grow at an incredible speed. While you're forcing the growth, you carefully guide the branch, molding it into the shape of the vocal cords from your memory. This whole process might take a long time, but hey, time is the one thing you've got plenty of. Besides, with the power of faith helping you out, the growth speed kicks into high gear, and the whole thing only takes a few minutes. A simple set of vocal cords was quickly brought to life by your will. Next, you manipulated the branches to form a hollow cavity. This space was meant to mimic the function of lungs, drawing in and compressing the air. Once they were formed, you began your first test, letting the air rush through the vocal cords, but only strange sputtering sounds came out. Clearly, the material wasn't resilient enough yet. You began to experiment over and over, forcing your branches to grow relentlessly, desperate to find that perfect balance. A vocal cord with enough strength and flexibility. If you were just some ordinary tree, there's no way you could ever pull this off. But you aren't just a plant. You are a divine tree fueled by the faith of others. Finally, after dozens of failed attempts, you managed through sheer effort to to create a structure capable of producing sound. It wasn't exactly like a human vocal cord, looking more like some kind of musical instrument. A hollow cylinder with an opening at the top, and a thin, tough leaf-like membrane that acted as the source of vibration. When the air passed through, it could finally sing. But creating a rhythmic structured sound was going to be a challenge. You still needed more time to practice. All of these secret trials took place within a secluded enclosed space. You didn't want those primitives outside to hear you. Just then, Blackwood walked up and stood before you. "Oh, powerful ancient tree, what do you think I should do?" "I don't agree with the plan my tribesmen have suggested. I once gave you my word that I would spread your name across this vast land. I want to take this small neighboring tribe and fold them into our own tree tribe. Let them become your subjects too. Let them offer you their devotion and their sacrifices." You were stunned by his words. You hadn't seen this coming at all. So that's what's going through Haimu's head. Honestly, you're a big fan of the way he's thinking. If you could get even more people to believe in you, the amount of faith energy you'd receive would be massive. Not bad at all, the kid's got some real ambition. But now how are you going to respond to him? You pause a moment, and finally you come up with a plan. You control a single branch and slowly lower it toward him. This branch is bare without a single leaf on it, and the tip is sharpened to a fine point. The second Haimu sees that branch descending, he drops to his knees in total terror. He slams his forehead right into the dirt, too scared to even move a muscle. You're a little speechless at his over-the-top reaction, but you've still got a message to deliver. Using the tip of that branch, you start sketching in the soil right by his feet. It doesn't take long before a simple drawing is finished. It might not be a masterpiece, but the main message is definitely there. Seeing that Haimu is still face down on the ground, you use the branch to give his head a little nudge. Only then does Haimu finally look up, and you point the branch toward the ground in front of him. Gesturing at your artwork, Haimu looks down, and his eyes land on the abstract sketch. The drawing shows a massive towering tree, meant to be you. And right there at the base of the tree is a whole crowd of tiny people bowing down in worship. Haimu realizes what you're saying instantly. He bangs his head on the ground one more time and cries out, "Great ancient tree! I know exactly what I have to do. I'll bring that entire tribe back here and make sure they worship you too." Hearing those words, you rustle your leaves in pure satisfaction. Now that Haimu has his answer, he rushes straight back to his living quarters. He gathers every single one of his tribesmen immediately and shares the divine message the ancient tree gave him. At first, there were a few people who didn't buy what he was saying, but the moment they heard the ancient tree had given its blessing, he immediately changed his tune. You watch as Kuroki leads his tribesmen away, likely heading off to find that new tribe. You just don't know if things will go smoothly for them on this trip. Kuroki wants others to worship you, the great tree, but it's not like people will just agree the moment he asks. There might even be some serious clashes during the process, but you don't really have the headspace to worry about that right now. All your focus is poured into one thing, crafting a set of vocal organs. After trial, you've managed to create several different types of sound-producing structures. Some are like those musical instruments from your past life. You know, things like flutes and pipes. While they can make noise, they're not really suited for actual talking. Others are more like the vocal organs of insects. You actually got the inspiration for this from that little guy. That bee living on your trunk. It makes a sound, sure, but it's no good for communicating with people. Finally, you successfully built a structure that can actually speak human language. After practicing hundreds of times, you've finally mastered the art of speech. After practicing hundreds of times, you've finally mastered the art of speech. The whole process took days. Once that was finished, you finally had the energy to check on other things. You scanned the tree tribe settlement for a bit, but you can't find Kuroki anywhere. Maybe he just hasn't made it back yet. Feeling a bit bored, you quietly move a branch that can produce sound right next to that little bee. Suddenly, a buzzing sound just like a bee's rings out, jolting the little guy wide awake. He flies up in a panic, darting all over the place. Looks like he's searching for where that sound came from. You can't help but chuckle watching him zip around like that. It feels just like playing with a cat or a dog, except you're messing with a bee. You start to wonder. This bee is far from your average insect. It's always been a lone wolf acting strictly on its own. You've never once seen another one like it. And the size of this thing, it's massive. It's nearly as big as a grown man's fist. There's no way a normal bee could ever get that huge. Thankfully, your form as an ancient tree is full. It's easy for it to stay hidden deep within your branches. Plus, you make sure it never shows itself to those primitives. That's why no one in the tree tribe has ever noticed it. 2 days later, Himu finally returned with his men. However, the only people behind him were his own tribesmen. There wasn't a single soul from any other tribe in sight. It's clear to you that he failed his mission. But wait, wasn't the target just a tiny insignificant tribe? How could they possibly hold their own against Haimu's squad? You're certain of the power you gave the tree tribe. Their physical strength should be leagues above any ordinary human. Even with that edge, Haimu still couldn't pull it off. This actually piques your curiosity quite a bit. Just what kind of tribe are they dealing with? Soon enough, Haimu approaches you with intel on the enemy. Great ancient tree, Haimu is useless. I have failed you. I couldn't bring the people of that small tribe back with me. Right then you suddenly find your voice and speak. Tell me everything you know about them. Hearing a voice, Haimu's face turns pale with terror. He looks left and right, frantically searching for the speaker. But no matter where he looks, he can't find a soul. Stop searching. I'm right here in front of you. I am the very ancient tree you serve. Haimu is frozen in shock, his eyes nearly popping out. Then his legs give out and he drops face first to the dirt. Shaking with fear, he cries out, "Great spirit of the tree! So you really can speak?" Before you even have a chance to respond, Haimu starts rambling to himself. I was so wrong, so stupid. Of course the great ancient tree can talk. You are the divine guardian of our entire tribe. How could a god like you not know the language of men? Haimu lies there trembling uncontrollably on the ground. It's obvious that he's scared half to death by what's happening. At this moment, his heart is overflowing with pure raw awe. Still kneeling in the dirt, he continues to plea. Clearly haven't shown you the level of respect you deserve. It must be because I wasn't devoted enough, and I failed to live up to the great ancient tree's expectations. Is that why you're speaking to us like this, my lord? You pause for a second, stunned, and then think to yourself, forget it, I'm not even going to bother explaining. Don't go spreading this around for now. And there's no need to go out of your way to notify the rest of the tribe. Now start by telling me exactly what happened with that other tribe. The reason you're giving these orders is because you're worried this guy Haimu will start screaming his head off, causing the entire tree tribe to come rushing over just to worship you. Although every massive prayer session generates a significant amount of faith energy for you, doing it too often has become a real drag. Besides, even when they aren't holding a formal ceremony, you're actually pulling in faith energy around the clock. It's just that the accumulation speed is a bit slower, that's all. Haimu chuckles as he scrambles up from the ground. With a goofy grin, he says, "Great ancient tree, you're the best. I'm so happy you're finally willing to talk to us. It's amazing. Oh right, I almost forgot the important stuff. I just took some of our people over to that small tribe. That group only has about 30 people in total. If it were just a numbers game, our tree tribe wouldn't be afraid of them at all. Then why did you guys end up failing?" Haimu comes clean about the actual reason. Even though that tribe's population is tiny, they have a totem of their own. Totem. You catch those two words instantly. Could it be that totems hold some kind of special significance in this world? So you ask him, what kind of totem do they worship? Haimu replies, that tribe's totem is the black tortoise. And get this, they're actually migrating and taking their totem with them. Can a totem really just be moved around like that? You silently make a mental note of this crucial intel. Too bad you're just an ancient tree right now. There's no way you can just pick up and move like they do. Haimu continues his report to you. I met their chief face to face and demanded that they merge into our tribe. I told them we could all worship the great ancient tree together from now on. But that chief just gave me a cold stare and said that they'll only ever worship their own totem as long as they live. Then he took me to see their totem. It was a black turtle about the length of my arm. Haimu gestured with his arm as he spoke, so I laid down another condition for him. If they won't offer sacrifices to you, ancient tree, then they have to get off this land. You nod silently listening as Haimu continues his story. But their chief claimed this land is incredibly rich, and there's no way they're giving it up easily. They're ready to settle things with a fight to decide who really owns this place. I agreed on telling them we could throw down right then and there. You find yourself thinking that Haimu's side must have lost the fight. Otherwise, he wouldn't be back here empty-handed. But Haimu's next words are actually a bit different from what you expected. Even though our tree tribe received your divine blessing, Great One, giving us these incredibly tough bodies, well, those black turtle tribe folks were also blessed by that black turtle of theirs. It gave them some insane defensive power. I went toe-to-toe with their chief Aoshan, but I couldn't even scratch his defense. Then again, Aoshan couldn't beat me either, so I decided to head back to the tribe first, to ask for your help, ancient tree. Haimu finished talking and looked at you with hope. He's clearly wishing that you can grant him even more power. This actually puts you in a bit of a spot, because when it comes to granting power, you haven't really figured out how that works yet. Plus, what kind of power would you even give him? You are a faith inside you right now. But before this, you only used it to grow a single flower, and to make some branches sprout out. That flower has finally produced a fruit, but unfortunately it's not ripe yet. Speaking of the flower, something just hit you. Back when that flower withered and died, you had actually saved the 5 petals it dropped. You quickly go to check on how those 5 petals are doing. It's been several months now since the blossoms withered away. But when you take a closer look, you find those 5 petals are still as fresh as the day they bloomed. Maybe this stuff could actually be useful. You control your branches to carefully pick up a single petal. As you bring it right in front of Haimu, you command him eat this petal. You don't tell him to give it a try or anything soft like that. I mean, come on, you're the great ancient tree. Saying stuff like that would totally be beneath your status, wouldn't it? You can't go around showing any lack of confidence. The moment Haimu hears your command, his becomes heavy and rapid. He takes the petal like it's the most fragile treasure in the world. And then without a single second of hesitation, he tosses it into his mouth. As soon as it hits his tongue, Haimu's eyes snap wide open. He immediately sits down right in front of your trunk, focused entirely on absorbing the energy locked within that petal. Back when that flower first bloomed, you poured a massive amount of faith power into it to keep it growing. It was never going to be just some ordinary plant. With his eyes tightly shut, Haimu feels an endless surging stream of power, flooding into every single part of his being. It feels a lot like when he first caught a whiff of that heavenly scent. But this is 1,000 times more intense. Haimu's mind immediately flashes back to that fragrance. Could it be that this petal is actually from the same legendary flower that smelled so divine? Deep down, Haimu is moved to the point of literal tears. Lord Ancient Tree is being weighed to him. To think he would actually give away something this precious. Suddenly, a massive surge of faith power erupts inside your body. The sheer amount is almost enough to rival the total you'd get from an entire tribal sacrifice in the past. You look down at Haimu sitting there beneath you, and it's pretty obvious where this surge is coming from. This power is definitely radiating straight off of him. If there were actual levels to this whole faith thing, Haimu would straight up be a fanatic believer by now. Slowly, Haimu starts to realize that something new has manifested inside his body. He has no clue what this thing actually is, but he can feel it flowing through his entire being. And with every single cycle it completes inside him, everything that happened gave Kuroki the sense that he was actually becoming much stronger. But for you, the sensation was even more profound. You suddenly felt that Kuroki standing right there shared a deep blood-linked connection with you. This definitely wasn't an illusion. The feeling was undeniably real. It was as if Kuroki had become one of your own branches, yet he was still different from a normal one. You could sense his every move, but you had no way to control him. Just then, Kuroki snapped his eyes open, bolted to his feet, and let out a massive roar toward the sky. It caught you so off guard that you flinched, making your entire leafy canopy rustle and shake. Then you saw it. A faint green mist began to drift off Kuroki's body. That mist wrapped around him like a shroud, eventually forming the phantom image of a massive tree. This spectral tree looked quite a bit like your own physical form. After he finished shouting, Kuroki finally noticed the strange changes in himself. At that moment, the rest of the tree tribe heard his cry and came rushing out to see what was wrong. Gripping their wooden clubs and stone-tipped spears, they charged toward the ancient tree, only to find Kuroki glowing vibrant green light. Chief, what on earth is happening? Kuroki clenched his fists tight, feeling his entire body surging with incredible power. He couldn't help but burst into a booming laugh. Then he wiped the smile off his face and knelt down before you. Thank you, great ancient tree, for granting me this power. I swear I will crush the Black Tortoise tribe and bring them all back here. The rest of the crowd finally realized that you were the reason for everything. One by one, the people of the tree tribe began to bow down in worship. However, you weren't about to give them any more petals. You only had 4 petals left after all. As for making another flower bloom, you didn't have any plans to do that just yet. Still, the effects of that petal were way beyond what you had imagined. That strange power manifesting from Haimu. You've decided to call it Bloodline power. It gives you this profound sense of being connected by blood, so the name feels perfectly fitting. Haimu sets him once again. This time he's determined to defeat the chief of the Black Turtle tribe and force them into total submission. Once Haimu leaves the tree tribe's territory, you realize you can faintly sense exactly where he is. This connection must be another effect of that bloodline power. Bzz bzz, you hear a familiar hum, and realize the little bee has finally returned from foraging. He lands on your trunk, but you immediately notice that he's in terrible shape. He's covered in blood from some unknown creature, and one of his legs is just dangling. It looks completely broken. It seems he got into a brutal fight with something, and he is severely wounded. He crawls to the spot where a branch meets your main trunk, curling his tiny body up as he lies down. You hope that a little rest might help him recover. But by the following day, the bee is still in the exact same spot. He's motionless. It looks as if he's already passed away. You slowly extend a branch, preparing to bury him roots. After all, he's been your companion for a long time now, and you've come to think of him as a true friend. But the moment your branch touches his body, one of his legs gives a tiny weak twitch. He struggles to lift his head, looking up at the branch you've reached toward him. Suddenly, you can feel his emotions flooding into you. He's crying out for help, saying he doesn't want to die like this. He wants to keep living, and as long as you can save him, he's willing to do anything for you. Without a moment's hesitation, you agree. But how are you supposed to save him? You're stuck. You don't have any formal way to heal others, but figuring it's worth a shot, you begin trying to channel the life force within your body to see if it can pull him back from the brink. You took the power of faith from within your body and funneled it through the branch into the bee. The energy flowed smoothly, straight into its tiny body, but it didn't seem to do a thing. The poor thing still looked like it was on its breath. Looks like the power of faith alone isn't cutting it. You started racking your brain for another way. Then remembered that flower you made bloom earlier. Its fragrance had the power to restore youth. Maybe it could heal wounds too. You tried using your divine power to coax out a tiny little flower bud. It was barely half the size of a fingernail. Since the flower was so small, it didn't really take much effort at all. Without draining much of your faith, you managed to make it bloom. A faint sweet scent drifted from the petals, and the bee's spirits clearly lifted as it breathed it in. But the physical wounds were still there. Its energy had returned a bit, but it hadn't really fixed the problem. So you kept pouring your divine power into that little flower until a single drop of nectar formed at its center. Then, you carefully fed that drop of nectar to the bee. The moment it swallowed the nectar, a soft green mist began to swirl. This reminded you of the same mist that you'd seen on Blackwood before. Could they be the same thing? Very quickly you saw exactly what the mist was doing. It was actually slowly repairing the bee's wounds. Seeing this, you finally let out a sigh of relief. It meant you were doing the right thing. With the help of that magical mist, the bee's injuries completely healed. It finally pulled itself up, gave its wings a few experimental shakes, and took off into the sky once more. Looks like it's all better now. You couldn't help but feel a surge of pride in your own power. It looks like those flowers you bloomed with the power of faith have incredible healing properties. You start wondering again, is there a more convenient way to use this power? If you have to make a flower bloom every single time, it's honestly a bit of a hassle. Then you look at your own branches and get an idea. Could you use the power of faith directly to produce a healing sap instead? No time like you immediately start experimenting. Soon at the tip of a bare branch, a single drop of glowing green sap emerges. Seeing the little bee resting on a branch nearby, you call him over? He's the perfect test subject for this. You feed the condensed sap to the bee, and as soon as he takes it in, that same healing mist starts rising from his body. It's clear now the sap works exactly like the nectar. You're absolutely thrilled with the result. After all, this is a skill you developed all by yourself. From now on, you can be the ultimate healer, a legendary tree dedicated to saving lives. Once the excitement settles, you notice that the bond between you and the bee has become much tighter. It's a strange sensation. Not quite the same as the bloodline connection you have with Blackwood, but something unique. You realize that you can now communicate with the bee's soul. He can't actually talk, and all he does is buzz around, but understand exactly what he's trying to say. Not bad. From now on, you're my little sidekick, and you'll be in charge of patrolling the area. Buzz, buzz, buzz as you wish, great ancient tree. Just call me Boss Bye from now on. No need for the formal Great One stuff. Yes, Boss Bye. It seems like you don't have a name yet, right? From now on, I'll call you Golden Bee. This is awesome, I finally have a name. From today on, I am Golden Bee. So you gave the little bee a name, and officially took him in as your sidekick. Jin Feng, tell me, what are you actually capable of? Boss Bye, I only know how to bite things with my mouth. But my bite is really strong. I can snap through almost anything. You think to yourself, well, that doesn't sound very impressive. You realize that at this rate, he's not gonna cut it. Jin Feng, after you ate that tree, did you feel any kind of power surging inside you? You're wondering if you can help Jin Feng tap into his bloodline power too, if he can actually stand a chance in a real fight. Jin Feng quiets his mind and starts to focus. Before long, a faint green mist begins to drift off his body. Seeing this, you give a slight nod. Not bad. Looks like he's got that bloodline power in him after all. But just a moment later, that green mist starts to fade away, and then a surge of yellow mist starts pouring out. Now this is something you didn't expect. It looks like Jin Feng actually has some real talent. You can see it clearly now. That yellow mist swirling around him. It's also a form of bloodline power. But it's not a power you gave him. This is coming from Jin Feng himself. It's a power he awakened from deep within his own being. Finally, Jin Feng's entire body is completely enveloped in that thick yellow mist. And that mist, it starts taking the faint shape of a massive bee. Jin Feng finally snaps his eyes open. He stares at the mist swirling around his body and the ghostly silhouette of that giant bee looming behind him. He's just as shocked as you are. Boss Bai, what is this? You explain this power is called bloodline power. It comes from deep inside your own body. As for what it can actually do, well, that's for you to find out. Jin Feng just nods, looking completely dazed. He's trying to process it, but clearly has no clue what's going on. You can't really teach him much more than that. After all, you only just discovered bloodline power yourself not too long ago. But what's really bugging you is, why was Jin Feng able to awaken his own bloodline power, while Haimu couldn't? The phantom appearing over Haimu's body is clearly just a reflection of your giant tree form, but the one manifested by Jin Feng is actually his own bee image. You can only guess for now that a human body is just more unique. Looks like this calls for more research. Jin Feng pulled back his power. Boss Bai, I want to head out. You mean to go find some food? Go ahead, just stick to your usual routine. I'll call you if I need you for something. Jin Feng buzzed up into the air. Boss Bai, actually, I'm going for revenge. Yesterday when I was foraging, I ran into a snake. The guy tried to steal my food, so I ended up getting into a scrap with him. The thing is, I didn't win. You were genuinely shocked. Wait, hold on, you were fighting a snake for food. What exactly do you eat on a daily basis? Jin Feng replied, oh, I eat all sorts of things. You know, nectar, fruit insects, stuff like that. Basically, if I find it, I'll eat it. Man, you really thought? He was just a little honeybee out gathering nectar. Who knew he was actually a meat eater? Then again, carnivorous bees do exist. Like wasps, hornets, and even killer bees, they all hunt other bugs. You realized you totally misjudged him, but you didn't dwell on it. You just told Jin Feng to be careful. After all, his opponent is a snake. A single bee would still have a tough time. Besides, a whole day has already passed. That snake is probably miles away by now. But Jin Feng stood his ground. Boss Bai, that jerk definitely hasn't left. There's a massive tribe nearby, and those people actually raise snakes. That snake belongs to one of those humans. Another tribe. You immediately picked up on the weight of Jin Feng's words. This was a massive piece of intel. After thinking it over for a moment, you gave Jin Feng his orders. Jin Feng, we're putting your revenge on hold for now. I need you to do something else first. Go to that snake-raising tribe and scout out exactly what we're dealing with. Find out how many of them there are, and what kind of totem they worship. Once you've got the facts, come back and report to me. This was all about staying one step ahead, as the tree tribe continued to grow and expand. It was only a matter of time before you'd have to deal with the neighbors. In a world, getting the jump on the enemy's information was everything. Whether they ended up as allies or enemies, having the upper hand in intel would give you the edge. With that, Jin Feng took to the skies. As you watched him disappear into the distance, you figured that the snake-raising tribe must be pretty far away from the tree tribe's territory. Since your trunk was now nearly 50 meters tall, your field of vision was incredibly wide, and yet within your line of sight, there wasn't another tribe to be found. As for the Black Turtle tribe, there was a mountain sitting right in that direction, completely blocking your view of them. A small river happened to flow right past the base of that mountain. That's where the Black Turtle tribe had decided to set up their camp. You remembered back to when you first arrived in this world. That river was nothing more than a tiny little creek. But over the last several hundred years, that creek had slowly carved itself wider and deeper until the river it is today. Meanwhile, on the other side of the woods, Himu and his warriors had already reached the Black Turtle tribe. It wasn't a very large settlement. They lived in cramped, low-slung huts made of wood and dried grass. Honestly, the whole place looked like it was about to fall apart the second they spotted Haimu's group approaching. They scrambled to gather every single person in the tribe. The air turned thick with tension in an instant, and everyone watched the other side warily waiting for the first person to blink. Every man reached for his weapon, while the women pulled the children close to protect them. As for the elderly, the Black Tortoise tribe had endured a grueling migration, and every one of the elders had died along the way. Haimu stood tall before the Black Tortoise people, without a single trace of fear. He roared at the crowd with a booming voice. Ocean, I'm back for you. Our last duel ended in a draw. but today I'm definitely taking you down. I'll make your people bow before the great ancient tree. The man Haimu called out was the chief of the Black Tortoise tribe. Aoshan stepped forward, his face dark with rage. Haimu, you're getting way too ahead of yourself. Our last fight proved one thing clearly. The great tortoise is just as powerful as that tree you worship. We will never abandon our faith, or turn our backs on the great tortoise. Haimu let out a cold, mocking scoff. Last time was just a fluke. Bring it on this time. I'm going to show you exactly how terrifying the great ancient tree's power truly is. The two of them locked eyes in a tense stare-down. People from both the tree and Black Tortoise tribes backed away to form a wide circle, clearing out an arena for the duel. Both men gripped their stone spears tightly, watching each other's every move in the center of the ring. Aoshan let out a guttural roar, and was the first to initiate a charge. Haimu lunged forward with a heavy step, attack head-on. Their stone spears slammed together in mid-air, and both men were forced back a step from the impact. But they instantly lunged forward again, trading a relentless barrage of strikes. Neither side could gain the upper hand in the heat of battle. Haimu's physical endurance was incredible. Even after fighting this long, he didn't show a hint of fatigue. Aoshan, however, was slowly starting to lose ground, though his body remained as tough as a tortoise shell. Haimu's spear grazed across his arm, leaving barely a scratch. It could only leave a tiny little scratch. Even when he's on the defensive, Aoshan can rely on that ironclad body of his to tank every single one of Kuroki's hits. Their last fight went exactly like this. A total stalemate until they both collapsed from exhaustion. But Kuroki knows better now. Without using the gift you gave him, there's no way he's taking Aoshan down. He starts tapping into that inner strength, feeling it surge from every fiber being, gathering into a rushing river of vital energy. Kuroki's arms suddenly snap with power, letting out a low vibrating hum. And with just one jolt, he sends Aoshan flying back. Aoshan barely manages to catch his balance, but when he looks up, his jaw drops. A green aura is radiating off Kuroki, shimmering and shifting, like the spectral form of a massive tree shielding him. Haha, let's go again, let's see you try and win this time. Kuroki grips his spear and slams his foot down, cracking the very ground beneath him. As he launches himself forward like a rocket, Aoshan panics and throws up his spear, desperate to block the incoming strike. Kuroki leaps high into the air, putting every ounce of his weight behind the spear, bringing it crashing down on Aoshan like a mountain. Snap, Aoshan's spear breaks like a toothpick. And then, Kuroki's spear lashes across his chest with brutal force, sending Aoshan tumbling backward, coughing up a huge spray of blood. The Black Turtle tribe members let out a collective scream, terror written all over their faces. They scramble toward where Aoshan crashed, and rush to pull him back to his feet. With blood dripping from his chin, and his whole body screaming in pain, he gasps out, "Quick, go get the great black turtle!" Hearing the desperation in his voice, several tribesmen turn tail and sprint back toward the village. Meanwhile, at the back of the Black Turtle tribe, right where the small river flows by, there's a pond that was only recently dug out. Inside, a massive black tortoise is just lying there. Just looking at it from the outside, aside from being a bit oversized, there's really nothing else special about it. Members of the Black Tortoise tribe rush to the water's edge. They fall to their knees in a panic, bowing their heads frantically to the giant black tortoise. Lord Black Tortoise, things are bad. The people from the tree tribe have returned, and they even managed to defeat the black tortoise in the pond slowly opens its eyes. It lifts its head, staring directly at the tribesman who just spoke. Lord Black Tortoise, the chief sent us here to plead for your help. We hope you can help us and defeat that despicable bastard. The tortoise shakes its head slightly. Seeing this, the men quickly jump into the water. They lift the tortoise up and begin carrying it out. Outside the village, Kuroki pulls back his spear. Within just a few breaths, the mist surrounding him is sucked back into his body. Seeing that Kuroki has won the battle, the members of the tree tribe erupt into cheers. Kuroki waves his hand to quiet them and shouts, "All of this is thanks to the power of the great ancient tree." The great ancient tree. The great ancient tree. Kuroki joins the chanting for a moment, then begins walking toward the Black Tortoise tribe. "You've lost. According to our deal, you're coming back with us for sacrifices to the great ancient tree. And from now on, you will follow the great tree's faith." Supported by his tribesmen, Aoshan limps forward to face Kuroki. "This isn't going to end like this. We still have Lord Black Tortoise." Kuroki instantly flares up with rage. "You dare go back on our agreement? Oh." The members of the Black Tortoise tribe all raise their weapons toward Kuroki at once. The tree tribe warriors are ready to charge in response, but luckily Kuroki manages to hold them back. Otherwise, there's gonna be a bloodbath. Blackwood's face darkened with rage. I'm giving you guys one last shot. Get your asses back with us now. Just then, the guys carrying that giant tortoise pushed their way through the crowd and stepped right up to the front. Oshan spotted the great black tortoise. He immediately cried out, "Great tortoise! Please help us fight off these bastards." Blackwood tensed up instantly. A thick mist started pouring off his entire body. The massive black turtle suddenly snapped its jaws open and sank its teeth right into Oshan's hand. Oshan let out a blood-curdling scream. The tribesmen holding the tortoise instinctively let go in shock. The huge turtle slammed straight onto the dirt. Then, while everyone just stood there with their jaws dropped, the damn thing just crawled away without even looking back. Seeing his god ditching them like that, Oshan panicked and yelled, "Quickly bring the great tortoise back." Blackwood's expression turned cold. He waved his hand and barked, "Don't let them move, stop them." The tree tribe slammed into the tortoise tribe in an instant. It was a total bloodbath as both sides tore into each other. And that big black turtle, while Blackwood watched, it waddled its way down to the riverbank, took a dive right in, and vanished without a trace. It didn't take long for Blackwood and his crew to round up every last member of the tortoise tribe. Blackwood stood over the dying Aoshin. He smit him and said, "Bet you didn't see that coming, huh? The god you worshipped so much just left you to rot. Starting today, the tortoise tribe is history." Aoshin hacked up a mouthful of blood. His eyes started to glaze over. He let out one final breath and then he was gone. Blackwood took Aoshin's body, found a spot and shoved it into the ground. Then he marched the remaining survivors of the tortoise tribe back home. From a distance, you could see Blackwood returning in glory. Along with his men were a bunch of tribespeople being dragged along with their families. It was pretty clear those were the survivors of the tortoise tribe. But from now on, this group is going to have to change their name. They're going to be fully integrated into the tree tribe. Of course, a transition like this is going to take some time to truly settle in. Haimu brought the crowd back to the tree tribe village, and then he led them right in front of you. Haimu stood at the very front and declared, "Behold the ancient tree lord tribe worships. From this day forward, you will also offer your prayers to him." The whole group dropped to their knees, bowing down low before you. Even though you only felt a tiny glimmer of faith from them, you knew they weren't true believers just yet. But you were confident that it wouldn't be long before they became your loyal followers. After Haimu finished leading the ritual, he started getting everyone settled into their new homes. The tree tribe's population was already 61, and with the 32 newcomers from the tortoise tribe, the total reached 93 people. In the dead of night when everything was still, Haimu came to see you all by himself, whispering softly for the ancient tree lord. Naturally, you weren't sleeping. Honestly, ever since you became a tree, you rarely ever sleep. Sometimes when you're bored, though, you just let your mind go blank, thinking of absolutely nothing at all, which feels a lot like sleeping in a way. You spoke up, Haimu. "Great job." Haimu gave a humble, sheepish grin. "Lord Tree, it's all thanks to the incredible power you gave me. I never could have beaten the tortoise chief without you. So what brings you to me so late tonight?" Haimu then began to recount the entire process of conquering the tortoise tribe, telling you every single detail of the battle. Once he was done, he asked hesitantly, "Lord Tree, can a totem just leave whenever it wants?" Hearing that question, you knew exactly what he was worried about. He was clearly afraid that one day, you would suddenly abandon them, leaving just like that giant tortoise did. You laughed. "Haimu, if the totem you worshipped stopped granting you strength, would you just go and find another one to believe in?" At those words, cold sweat broke out on Haimu's forehead, and he immediately threw himself onto the ground in fear. He bowed low, his forehead hitting the ground. "Great ancient tree," he stammered. "The Haimu tribe will follow you until the end." You extended a branch and gently lifted him back to his feet. "Relax, there's no need to be so tense. I was only speaking in hypotheticals. I'm sure you already know the answer deep down." Haimu stood there before you, rooted to the spot. His heart hammered against his ribs. I have no thoughts on the matter," he said, "and I certainly have no answers." Did he even dare to have an opinion? Not in a million years. You couldn't help but sigh at his sheer terror. "Fine, I'll just give it to you straight. Just as a tribe chooses its totem, the totem can also choose its tribe. If the day comes where your actions disgust the totem, it will naturally turn its back on you and leave. Go talk to the survivors of the Black Tortoise tribe. Ask them exactly what they did to drive their own guardian away." Haimu nodded frantically. "Understood, Great Tree. I'll go find out right away." Truth be told, all of this was just speculation, but you figured the reality couldn't be far off from that. Seeing Haimu ready to bolt, you quickly stopped him. "Haimu, wait until tomorrow. It's the middle of the night. Everyone is trying to get some sleep." Haimu bobbed his head. "Of course. Please, great tree, rest well yourself. With that, Haimu scrambled away as fast as his legs could carry him. It looked less like a departure and more like a desperate escape. You muttered to yourself, am I really that terrifying? I mean, I'm just a tree, for crying out loud. You didn't dwell on it for long. Shifting your gaze, you looked up at the night sky. The sky in this world was incredibly clear. It had a sun and it had a moon. But if you looked closely, you'd notice they both seemed unusually small. There was something almost artificial about them. And at night, there wasn't a single star in the sky, just the moon. Of course, you were the only one who would ever notice these things. After all, you'd spent an entire lifetime in a different for this. To you, this world felt very strange. To the primitive people who were born and raised here, they've grown up watching that sun in the sky since they were kids. In their eyes, that's just what a normal sun and moon look like. You shift your gaze down toward the ground. The people of the tree tribe are already fast asleep. Faint snoring is even drifting over from the black tortoise tribe. Splash! The sound of paddling comes from the river in the distance, echoing clearly through the silence of the night. You turn your attention toward the sound, and immediately spot a massive turtle swimming along. Could this big guy be the black tortoise tribe's totem? Haimu did mention that their great turtle vanished into the river and disappeared. Your interest is piqued by this sudden visitor. Controlling your branches, you send them shooting toward the river with a sharp whoosh. These particular branches are special ones you've grown, using the sheer power of faith, as flexible as a rope, yet as indestructible as tempered steel. You might as well call them tentacles. Just as the turtle in the river senses something is off, your tentacles are already brushing against its shell. It tries to dive deep to escape the strike, but your vines have already coiled tight around its body. Then, with a sudden surge of strength, you yank the massive turtle right out of the water. The turtle snaps its jaws shut on a tentacle, desperate to bite its way to freedom. But these aren't just any old branches. Under your command, they instantly become as hard as iron. It's like the turtle is biting down on solid rock. It doesn't do a thing except shatter its own teeth. You drag the creature back into your canopy. Branches and leaves weave together around it, locking it inside a living tree prison. The turtle hasn't given up yet, thrashing and struggling with all its might. You take a good look at this thing. It's roughly 1 meter long, dark and muddy all over. It really like the black tortoise totem Haimu described. The reason you're so interested in him is because Haimu once mentioned that the black tortoise tribe members had received a divine blessing from their totem, granting them an incredibly powerful defense. You try to send a message to this giant turtle using a technique you learned from Jin Feng. You discovered it while saving Jin Feng back then, but you weren't sure if it would work on this tortoise. You ask him, are you the black tortoise tribe's totem? You take the words you want to say, and through the tentacles wrapped around the giant turtle, you slowly transmit your thoughts. Suddenly, the giant turtle freezes. You feel a surge of joy, knowing that your method is actually working. Messages can indeed be passed through, though the turtle just sits there dazed without replying. So you continue by saying, just say whatever you're thinking, right there in your heart, and I should be able to understand you. As soon as the words leave, the turtle instantly jerks its head and limbs back into its shell. You didn't expect this thing to be such a total coward. You wait patiently for a bit longer, and finally you start to sense something. I used to be the totem of the black tortoise tribe, but that tribe is long gone now. Great lord, I'm just a normal little turtle. Please, I beg you, spare my life. Look at me, I'm nothing but a big shell. There's really no meat on me at all. Please don't eat me. I taste terrible, I'm not delicious at all. Master, if you're hungry, I can go into the water and catch fish for you. Please, just let me go. I can help you catch fish. As long as you spare my life, I'll catch fish for you every single day. You quickly sever the connection with the turtle. He just wouldn't shut up, constantly begging you to set him free. All right, I'm willing to let you go, but only if you calm down first. I've got a few things I need to ask you. You send this message across, then immediately cut the connection again for a little while. You finally see the giant turtle poke its head out from its shell. It glances around at its surroundings, then quickly pulls its head back in just a bit. You figure it's probably calmed down by now, so you re-establish the link. Did you used to grant blessings to the black tortoise tribe? The big turtle sticks its head out and gives a little nod. But great one, they totally forced me into it. It wasn't what I wanted at all. A bunch of primitives actually managed to force you to bless them. Don't you dare try to play me. The turtle immediately starts bawling, pouring out its heart. Oh, great one, I'm just a regular little turtle. I don't have insane power like you do. I was originally just a simple turtle living my life in a big river. Then one day those people suddenly snatched me out of the water and forced me to be their totem. I didn't agree at first, and I tried to make a break for it the first chance I got. but they caught me and dragged me right back. They threatened me, saying if I ever tried to run again, they'd boil me alive and eat me. Those people kept threatening me, so I had no choice but to be their totem. Are these primitives really that savage? As you listen to the black tortoise's sob story, you can actually picture the miserable life it lived. The people from the tree tribe are way better. At least they didn't force you. Then you suddenly remember what it was like when those people first arrived here. Even though they were begging for your protection, if you hadn't said yes, you might have ended up in the same boat as the black tortoise. At least the giant turtle had legs to run with. But you're a tree, you don't even have legs. You wouldn't be able to run even if you tried. Suddenly a wave of unease washes over you. No, things can't go on like this. The tree tribe might revere you now, but who's to say they won't stop believing in you one day? You can't leave your safety in the hands of others. You have to become strong. The giant continues, once I became their totem. The only real perk was that I didn't have to hunt for food anymore. They brought me meals every single day. You nod slowly. It sounds just like the offerings the tree tribe makes for you. Then one day those humans came to me again, begging for a blessing. But how the heck was I supposed to know how to do that? Here it is, the answer you've been looking for. The whole reason you tracked down this turtle was to find out how this exact thing works. In the end, I was backed into a corner, so I just squeezed out a few drops of my blood for them. But I'll be damned, it actually worked. The ones who consumed my blood, their bodies became incredibly strong, and they didn't get hurt easily at all. That's the whole story of how I blessed them. So that's the secret, they were drinking the turtle's blood. Now that you think about it, those petals you gave Kuroki, they're essentially a part of your own body too. The people of the tree tribe have basically been devouring your own flesh and blood. The realization sends a shiver down your spine. The knot of anxiety in your chest only tightens. You press further when you were acting as their totem. Did you feel anything strange? Like something extra was growing inside you? The giant turtle nods. I definitely felt something in there. Like something extra was building up. I've actually still got a bit of it left in me even now. Lord, do you have any idea what that stuff is? I call it the power of faith. It's a force generated within us, born from the worship and sacrifices of those primitive tribes. The power of faith. So that's what this energy is called. My lord, you really are something else. You even know about things like that. You chuckle to yourself, this turtle actually knows how to kiss up. He's probably just trying to get you to let him go. All right, I've asked pretty much everything I wanted to know. Where do you plan on going now? You say to the big turtle, go find a place to settle down. You smile and add, how about you stick with me instead? If you try to make a home somewhere else, someone might just snatch you up again. You think to yourself, since your strength hasn't fully matured yet, having a few bodyguards around is definitely a good idea. You've already recruited that bee as your little lackey, so you might as well give this turtle a shot. The big turtle asks tentatively, my lord, can I say no? You were really just trying to negotiate with the little guy, trying to convince him to follow you, but it seems like he's got the wrong idea. Relax, I'm actually going to let you go. The big turtle looks down at the vine still wrapped around him and nods his head frantically. I'm really letting you go, buddy. Why won't you believe me? The big Little thinks to himself, I'd have to be crazy to believe you. You release the big turtle back into the stream, and he promises he'll stay close by in this area, saying he'll even catch one fish for you every single day. You don't stop him. It's probably good to give him something to do. After letting the turtle go, you sink into deep thought. You look down at the tree tribe living at your feet. Before, you still clung to the mindset of once being human, so you felt a natural kinship with the tribe's people. That's why when Haimu asked for your blessing, you didn't hesitate to give him one of your petals. But now, seeing what the turtle went through made you realize something. To these primitives, are you really just a tree? If there comes a day when these primitives become stronger than you, they might actually turn on you. However, you can't just abandon these people yet, especially considering the power of faith they provide. This will definitely help you grow. But from now on, you have to be extra careful. Regarding your relationship with these primitive people, you can't just help them blindly. But you can't just leave them to fend for themselves either. The next day, Kuroki went to find the people of the Shwangui tribe, questioning them about turtle. You could hear every word of their conversation perfectly. What those people had to say wasn't much different from what the giant turtle told you yesterday. They really did capture the poor turtle, forcing it to give up its own blood, all for their own selfish gain. When Kuroki walked out of the Shwangui tribe's camp, his expression was incredibly conflicted. He came back to stand before you all alone, lifting his head, to gaze up at your tall and majestic ancient trunk. After a long silence, he slowly spoke, Great Spirit Tree. I have questioned the people of the Shwangi tribe as and I know the terrible things they did to their own totem. But then Kuroki's eyes turned rock solid with determination. The tree tribe will never ever do such a thing to you, great spirit tree. You just listened in silence, offering him no response. Suddenly, Kuroki fell to his knees. Great spirit tree, as long as I, Kuroki, am still brought for one single day, will I ever let anyone harm you? As soon as Kuroki finished his vow, you felt a massive surge of faith energy flow into you. This made you feel quite relieved, or at least it made you feel like giving Kuroki that petal wasn't a mistake after all. Still, you weren't going to change your plans for the entire tribe, just because of Kuroki's personal devotion. You rustled your branches slightly, letting the sound serve as a response to his words. Kuroki didn't stay there for very long. He's the chief of the entire tree tribe, so he has a lot of responsibilities to handle. By the time evening arrived, Jinfeng finally flew back from his scouting mission. Jinfeng dives into the leaves and finds a branch to settle on. Elder Bai, I'm back. Good work. So how did the investigation go? Jinfeng's smile faded, replaced by a serious look. I did a real thorough check. That tribe that raises snakes, they're called the snake tribe. The totem they worship is a serpent. It took me forever to find it. Finally on a mountain about a few hundred meters from their camp, I found that giant snake. Seriously, that thing is freaking huge. It's about this big, Jinfeng said, taking flight. He traced a large circle in the air. That circle was nearly 2 meters wide. Watching this, you couldn't help but click your tongue in shock. If that snake is really that big, you can't even call it a snake anymore. It's more like a legendary python. With the way the snake tribe does their rituals, it might actually evolve into a flood dragon or even a real dragon one day. But who knows if this world actually has what it takes for that kind of evolution. Jinfeng finished his gestures and landed back down. He continued, the snake tribe has around 200 people. Their people are incredible hunters. They're constantly out in the mountains tracking down prey, and they raise snakes too. Practically every person has one. To make it worse, most of them. Hearing this, a heavy feeling settles in your chest. This snake tribe is no joke, they're incredibly powerful. Compared to them, the tree tribe only has half the population. The gap in actual combat power is even worse. If a war ever broke out between the two, the tree tribe probably wouldn't stand a chance. Looks like we need to level up as fast as possible. You think it over carefully. Your plan is to start by spreading the knowledge of farming. Right now, the way the tree tribe gets food is mainly through hunting, supplemented by gathering wild plants. But as the tribe's numbers grow, relying only on hunting and gathering definitely won't be enough to keep everyone fed. However, you didn't just hand these secrets over to them immediately, but you still need to wait for the right moment. During this period of time, you decide to pour most of your energy into researching the power of faith, specifically looking for ways to use it in battle. In the past, when you used the faith, it was mainly to help your own branches grow, which you then used to create those incredibly tough and resilient vines. Aside from that, the power of faith can also sprout branches with healing properties, strengthen the physical body, and even produce petals that awaken bloodline powers. But honestly, those are all just support functions. They don't offer much in the way of actual combat power. Unfortunately, up until now, you haven't really made any breakthroughs in that area. As winter begins to settle in, the tree tribe starts facing a serious food shortage. Many animals choose to hibernate during the winter, so at this time of year, the amount of prey they can actually catch is way lower. And the biggest problem is, there's no fruit or anything left to gather in the cold. So the tribe's main food source has been completely cut off. Blackwood is forced to lead his people further and further away, just to search a hunt. You, however, choose not to interfere with them. But you notice that as the winter deepens, the amount of power of faith you receive every single day is actually increasing. After watching them, you finally realize why. It turns out these primitive people are praying to you, desperately hoping for a successful hunt. With every prayer they offer, a fresh wave of faith is sent directly to you. As the freezing winds begin to howl, the tree tribe finally hits their breaking point. They've gone for several days in a row without being able to find a single scrap of food. Just then, a former member of the Black Turtle tribe, named Qingxi, comes rushing over to Blackwood. Chief, we haven't had a single bite to eat for days. If this keeps up, we're all gonna starve. Kuroki's expression was looking pretty grim too. He knew exactly how bad their situation was. And as the leader of this tribe, he understood the reality of it better than anyone else. A man named Qingxi, Chief, can't we just ask the great ancient tree for help? Kuroki didn't understand. Why on earth would they go begging the great ancient tree? Isn't the great ancient tree our totem? Shouldn't the great tree be protecting us? Kuroki nodded slowly and said, The great ancient tree definitely protects us, but that's no excuse for us to go running to it for help. Besides, we haven't actually run out of food just yet. Even if they hadn't caught any wild beasts, they could still find things to scavenge outside. Kuroki was talking about things like tree bark and leaves. It was barely enough to stop their stomachs from growling. Kuroki believed they could still survive this winter. He ended up kicking the man who suggested it out of the room. We shouldn't bother the great ancient tree over every little thing. But Qingxi wasn't about to just give up. He went and found other members of the Black Tortoise tribe, and he shared a proposal with them. It didn't take long for him to find people who agreed. See, the Black Tortoise tribe had been defeated by Kuroki, and they were forced to merge into the tree tribe. Deep down, some of them were still pretty resentful. Qingxi planned to use this whole situation as a pretext, looking for any chance to stir up chaos in the tree tribe. With those guys egging everyone on, more and more people in the tree tribe started thinking the same way. Then one day, Kuroki came back empty-handed again. It was obvious he hadn't caught any prey at all. Qingxi immediately jumped on the opportunity and gathered a whole crowd of people. He led them to corner Kuroki and screamed at the top of his lungs, "Chief, we're all starving to death. Another day with no prey. Don't tell me we're eating tree bark again." Kuroki glanced back at the massive crowd trailing behind him. Most of them were from the Black Tortoise tribe, with a handful from the tree tribe mixed in. Kuroki's brow furrowed, anger in his eyes. "What the hell are you all doing here? Tree bark not tasty enough for you. If you've got the guts, go out and bag a beast yourselves." The hunters behind Kuroki chimed in, shouting back, "Exactly! Go hunt your own food if you're so capable. Now move it out of the way." "Why are you blocking the road?" Qingxi, however, wasn't about to budge. His goal today was to force Kuroki to take them to the ancient tree. "Great Chief, I already told you how to fix this. Let's go beg the great ancient tree. If he grants us food, we won't have to choke down bark every single day." His words immediately sparked a reaction. "He's right, Chief. Let's go find the great ancient tree. He can definitely give us something to eat. Chief, please just take us there." Kuroki's face turned darker by the second. These people were trying to back him into a corner. He took a sudden heavy step forward, sending the crowd stumbling back. For a moment, the entire place went dead silent. Kuroki scanned the crowd, burning every face into his memory. "So this is what you all want?" Faced with Kuroki's gaze, not a single person dared to speak up. Finally, Qingxi gritted his teeth and shouted, "That's right. This is what we all want?" Kuroki laughed. A cold, unsettling sound. Fine. He would gather every single member of the tribe and go find the great ancient tree together. Hearing this, Qingxi felt a wave of relief wash over him. Deep down, he was dying to see how the ancient tree would react. If the tree failed to provide them with food, he'd finally have a reason to convince the tribe to stop worshipping it once and for all. And as for the tree actually giving them food, give me a break. He didn't believe for a second that a tree could just conjure up a feast. He'd been secretly watching it for a long time. It was nothing more than an oversized plant, a tree that can't even move. On earth would it get food from? Before long, every single member of the tree tribe had gathered before you. The crowd was buzzing with hushed whispers. Some were certain the ancient tree would save them, while others weren't so sure. As the chief, Haimu naturally led the way. He stepped right up to you, leading his people in a solemn prayer. But you'd been watching them the whole time. You saw everything that went down after Haimu's return. During this ceremony, the power of faith you were receiving was noticeably weaker than it used to be. It was clear as day to you that many people in the tribe were starting to lose their faith. This change in heart was partly thanks to the Black Tortoise tribe's manipulation, and partly because they were starving. When their desperate prayers went unanswered, it bred a deep sense of distrust. Once Haimu finished the ritual, he laid out the tribe's desperate struggle and begged you to provide them with food. "Great ancient tree, hear our desperate cries, and provide food for your children." As soon as Haimu finished his plea, your entire trunk began to shudder violently. Every single leaf erupted in a deafening roar. This sudden change terrified the crowd, especially those who had pressured Haimu into coming here to demand a miracle. Right now, they looked absolutely petrified. He looked totally panicked, but tried to calm himself down, thinking, "No way, it's impossible. This is just a really big tree, right? You feel that. It's finally time to teach these primitives a thing or two." You slowly utter just 2 words, Blackwood. Blackwood drops to his knees instantly. "Great ancient tree, Blackwood is here." At the same time, the tribesmen behind him follow suit, kneeling all over the ground. This time, every single face is twisted with pure terror. The ancient tree they worship can actually talk. Is this thing even a tree anymore? Meanwhile, Blackwood is secretly gloating at a bunch of fakes with no real faith. Now you finally see how powerful the great ancient tree really is. You speak again, your voice booming like thunder. You ask me for food. Blackwood gives a small nod. Great ancient tree. The tree tribe's food supplies are almost gone. The people are hoping for more food to survive. When you try to nod, the effect is the entire massive tree starts shaking violently. Only those with true faith in me shall receive my bounty. The moment you say that, every person in the tribe snaps their head up. Their hearts are racing, and their faces are glowing with excitement. Even Blackwood is shocked. He didn't expect the ancient tree to actually give them food. His look becomes even more fanatical. He was already your most devoted follower, but now his faith is deeper than ever. You speak once more, Blackwood. Have your people step forward one by one. I will judge the depth of their devotion, grant them food accordingly. Your words make it clear to everyone. Not everyone is getting a meal. Only those who truly believe in the ancient tree will be fed. The guys who spearheaded the pressure on Kuroki, the ones who came to beg the ancient tree for food, suddenly slumped to the ground in total shock. It's over, it's all over for them. See, the ancient tree doesn't just grant everyone food, he can actually tell if your faith is real or not. These guys barely believe in the ancient tree at all, so there's no way they're getting a single bite. But it's even worse than that. The fact that they have zero faith is about to be exposed for everyone to see. At that point, going hungry will be the least of their problems. They might actually get kicked out of the tribe for good. Kuroki, you come up first. At your command. Kuroki walked right up to the ancient tree. He knelt down and offered his worship, and a surge of faith power immediately flowed into you. Then, you brought out the dried fish you'd prepared. Oh, when the crowd saw a soft, flexible branch, reaching out with the dried fish it was carrying, everyone's breath hitched with excitement. You'd been storing this dried fish for a while now, all thanks to that black tortoise you took as your lackey. The tortoise promised to catch one fish for you every single day, and he definitely kept his word. Sometimes he'd even bring you more than one. But you're a tree after all. It's not like you have a mouth to eat fish with. So you air-dried them to preserve them, and kept them in a storage space made of your own branches. Handing some of these out every few days should be enough to last these people until spring. You handed a piece of dried fish to Kuroki after he gave his thanks. He stepped aside so the next tribesman could come forward. It was the same process again, but this time the faith power you received was way less than what you got from Kuroki. Naturally, the piece of fish you gave back was much smaller too. Finally, it was the Black Tortoise tribe's turn. Qingxi walked toward you with a pounding heart, and after he knelt down to pay his respects, you felt a tiny faint spark of faith power from him. It's so small it's basically negligible. You're browsing through your storage room, and finally you just pluck off the tail of a tiny fish, planning to give it to him. But while he waits, he starts getting more and more panicked. Finally, he can't take the suspense anymore, and slams his forehead onto the dirt. Lord Great Tree, I was wrong. I should never have doubted your power. My faith wasn't pure enough. I'm a sinner, I'm so sorry. Lord Great Tree, I don't want the food anymore. Just please don't punish me. I truly messed up. I'll change, I swear. From now on, I'll be your most loyal follower. Li Wenyan puts the fishtail back. Forget it, get out of here. Haimu, take him away, and make him reflect on what he's done. Hearing your command, Himu immediately waves his hand. He has the guy off and lock him up, making sure he isn't allowed out for a long time. Watching how Haimu handles things, you think they should probably build a prison, but then you think better of it. The tree tribe can barely keep themselves fed right now. They definitely don't have the resources to build a jail. After Haimu has Qingxi hauled away, he continues having the other tribesmen come before you to receive their gifted food. Before long, pretty much everyone in the tribe has received their share, except for a small handful of people. And of course, Haimu has them taken away too, sending them home to be kept under house arrest. After this whole ordeal, everyone in the tribe has a newfound level of faith in you. In their eyes, you aren't just some big tree anymore, and you're way more than just a simple totem. So what exactly are you? They haven't quite figured that part out yet. You dismissed everyone and kept Haimu behind. Himu knew you definitely asked for him to perform. Great Tree, what would you have me do? You spoke slowly. Haimu, do you know why something like this happened today? Haimu lowered his head and replied, Great Tree, it's my fault for failing to lead the tribe properly, allowing unfaithful people to emerge within our ranks. You're right, you are indeed at fault for that. Himu's face darkened. Please, Great Tree, punish me, you chuckled. Hearing the laughter, Haimu looked up in confusion. Haimu, I'm not blaming you for failing to manage your people. What I want to know is why is the tribe short on food? Himu thought for a moment before answering. We haven't been able to catch enough game. You sighed to yourself. Forget it, it's probably too much to expect Himu to figure this out on his own. Better to just spell it out for him. Himu, have you ever paid attention to those wild grasses that produce seeds? Himu was caught off guard by your question and searched through. He usually only focused on tracking wild beasts. As for those grasses with edible seeds, probably only the women in the tribe who gather wild fruit would know anything about them. Seeing him deep in thought, you continued, if you were to collect those seeds and plant them in the ground when spring arrives, what do you think would happen? Himu answered instinctively, they would sprout and grow. Exactly, they would sprout and they would bloom. By autumn, they would produce even more seeds. All you have to do is plant one single seed in the spring, and by autumn you can harvest an entire cluster of seeds. Do you see what I'm getting at? Himu ran the logic in his head. One seed in exchange for a whole handful. Could it really be possible? Himu's breathing grew heavy. Great tree! If that's the case, doesn't that mean we'll have tons of seeds to eat? If so, we won't have to worry about starving during the winter anymore. This is incredible, tree. You could see that Kuroki had finally caught on to what you were planning. The idea was stuck in his head, and he wished spring would come right this second, just so he could get those seeds in the ground. You thought it over for a moment. Just knowing to plant the seeds wasn't enough. They needed actual farming knowledge. For instance, how to pick the right spot for a field, exactly when to start sowing, and what kind of tools they'd need for the job. These primitives had absolutely no clue, so you'd have to pass on that knowledge personally. Of course, you could always choose not to help, and after a few years of trial and error, they'd probably figure it out for themselves. But you felt that would be way too slow, so you immediately gave Kuroki his instructions. Pick a few people from the tribe and bring them to me. I will teach them the secrets of farming. That way, when spring arrives, they'll be able to handle the planting properly. Kuroki nodded instantly, saying he'd go pick the candidates right away. You no need for such a rush, as there was still plenty of time before spring. This window of time would be more than enough to hammer the basics into them, well, assuming they weren't too thick-headed. The next day, Kuroki brought 3 people to stand before you. They were all quite young, only 12 or 13 years old, but in the tree tribe, that age was basically considered adulthood. The boys would already be heading out to hunt, while the girls were reaching the age for marriage. It couldn't be helped. The average lifespan of these primitives was painfully short. Reaching 50 was basically considered a ripe old age. However, looking at this group from the tree tribe, since they've received your blessing, their physical abilities have improved significantly, which also means they'll be able to live much longer. There were 3 of them, 2 girls and 1 boy. Even before they reached you, you could hear the boy complaining to Kuroki from a distance. Kuroki, I don't want to learn about farm. I want to go out hunting with you guys. Kuroki didn't hesitate and landed a sharp smack right on the back of the boy's head. What kind of talk is that? The great ancient tree is teaching you personally. This is a rare opportunity and you're actually not going to cherish it. Believe me, if I went to the village and shouted for a replacement, people would be tripping over themselves to take your spot. The boy looked hurt and wanted to talk back, but seeing Kuroki's hand raised again, he had no choice but to follow along obediently. The 2 girls beside him were whispering to each other, covering their mouths and giggling. Kuroki brought the 3 of them before you and ordered them to study hard and not be lazy. The boy muttered under his breath. Who'd even dare to be lazy in front of the great ancient tree? Kuroki glared at him. What did you say? The boy quickly turned toward you, his attitude becoming incredibly sincere. I will definitely follow the great ancient tree and study hard. Chuckled to yourself at the sight, and told Kuroki he could leave the 3 of them in your hands. Among the 3, the boy was named Shanzi, and the 2 girls were Yuhei and Chingli. They had followed the adults in worshipping the ancient tree since they were kids, so they were all deeply devout believers. Even though the boy really wanted to go hunting, being chosen as a student of the ancient tree still made him feel pretty happy deep down. You started by asking them a few questions. The 2 girls actually recognized a few types of seeds, while Shanzi was completely clueless. You began by teaching them how to select the right seeds. Hearing your instructions, Chingli looked like she wanted to say something, but she finally gathered her courage and spoke up. Great ancient, every last seed we gathered is gone. There isn't a single seed left in the entire tribe. You slowly reach out with one of your branches, and the cluster of leaves at the very tip has been woven together into a massive pouch, overflowing with every kind of seed imaginable. Since you plan to teach them the secrets of farming, how could you possibly come unprepared? You had already instructed Jin Feng while he was out foraging to gather up any seeds he could find on his way back. After an entire autumn of careful gathering, you've managed to stockpile quite an impressive collection. Some of these seeds even come from lands far beyond the tribe's own territory. Being able to find such an incredible and rich variety of seeds was all thanks to Jin Feng's tireless efforts. The three of them stared at the pile of seeds, their jaws hitting the floor. They gasped in shock. Great ancient tree! How on earth do you have so many seeds? But don't give them an answer, simply letting them wonder and guess for themselves. Now that you have the seeds, the lessons can finally begin. Once they learned how to tell the seeds apart, you showed them how to craft tools for tilling the land, and exactly how to use them. All three of them were incredibly sharp, so it didn't take much effort at all to teach them. And then it was time for some real practice. You had them pick out a patch of wild land by the river, and use their new tools to break the soil and clear it. This wasn't just a practice field for the three of them, but the very spot where they'd be sowing seeds come springtime, when the rest of the tree tribe saw them digging by the water. They were all overcome with curiosity, and came running over just to get a look. So you gave the three of them a new task, to explain the secrets of farming to everyone else, while they continued to work the soil. By the time the first signs of spring appeared, almost everyone in the tree tribe knew the basics of farming, kept a close eye on the passing days, sensing exactly when spring would finally arrive. And once the moment was right, you told the three of them it was time to get ready for planting. They carefully tucked the selected seeds into the earth. The rest of the tree tribe rushed over to lend a hand. They didn't doubt a single word you said, so everyone followed the riverbank, tilling dozens of plots of land in all different shapes and sizes. Every last one of them was sown with seeds. But farming doesn't end once the seeds are in the ground. It takes constant care after that. Things like regular fertilizing, pulling up weeds, and keeping the pests away. Even with you guiding them, these tribe members ran into plenty of issues their first time around. If they had to figure it out on their own, it probably would have taken years to finally learn the ropes. While you were teaching them, you discovered yet another hidden talent of your own. You could tell exactly how the crops were doing, and knew needed to be done and when. This way, even without any actual farming experience, you could still guide everyone perfectly. 6 months flew by, and the crops with shorter growing cycles had already started producing seeds. The tree tribe was looking at its very first harvest. Led by Shanzi and his two companions, a group of women and children gathered together to harvest the ripened crops. It was a plant that looked a lot like wheat. However, the size of its seeds was only about half the size of normal wheat. But even so, for the people of the tree tribe, this was a completely brand new experience. It was their first time ever getting food this way, seeing the massive pile of seeds they'd gathered. Blackwood was grinning from ear to ear, and there were still plenty more crops in the fields waiting to ripen. Blackwood could already see it now. As long as they kept planting and kept harvesting, the tribe would have an endless supply of food. Might not even need to hunt anymore. Blackwood looked at the grinning Shanzi and asked, "So Shanzi, do you still want to go out and hunt now?" Shanzi replies with a cheerful grin, "Uncle Hey, the great ancient tree is truly incredible. Everything we have is a gift from him." Haimu nods in awe. "Yeah, it's all thanks to the great ancient tree's blessing. But we won't have to worry about starving this winter." Shanzi turns to Haimu and suggests, "Hey Uncle Hai, I think we should clear out even more land and plant a lot more seeds." Haimu nods, "That's a good point. But before we do that, we have one very important thing to take care of. A sacrifice for the great ancient tree." Shanzi smacks his forehead in frustration. "You're right, Uncle Hay! We definitely need to bring the great ancient tree some offerings." Then Shanzi suddenly adds, "But Uncle Hay, I don't think great ancient tree is the right way to call him anymore." Haimu's expression immediately sours. The boy with pure anger. "You little brat, what did you just say?" Shanzi quickly waves his hands. "Wait, Uncle Hay, don't get me wrong. I just mean the title Great Ancient Tree isn't grand enough. It doesn't really show just how truly great he is. Not grand enough." Haimu thinks to himself, is Great Ancient Tree not enough? What other word could possibly describe his greatness? "Alright, what are you thinking then?" Haimu stares Shanzi down. "If you can't come up with something better, you're going to be in big trouble." Shanzi shrinks back a little, knowing for sure that Haimu is ticked off. But he braces himself and says, "Uncle Hai, when I was learning from the great ancient tree, I heard him use a certain word once, and I think it's the perfect fit." What word? God, Haimu repeats the sound. These primitive people hadn't even invented a word like that yet. So Shanzi used the pronunciation from his mother tongue. To put it simply, the sound of the word was exactly God. Shanzi nods. "That's it, exactly. He is a god." The great ancient tree once said that a god is supreme and all-powerful. I think the great ancient tree should be called our god. Himu nodded instantly. From this moment on, I will address the great ancient tree as god. The two of them finished their preparations, deciding that at this very ritual, they would announce this to the entire tribe. Himu led the tribesmen to get ready for the sacrifice. He intended to offer you a lavish tribute this time. That's why. He first took the people out to hunt down a wild boar. After they returned, Himu had them take some of the newly harvested crops, bringing them out as an offering for you. With everything ready, Himu brought the entire tribe before you. They laid out the rich offerings at the base of your trunk. Once the people of the tree tribe finish a ritual, they never take the offerings away. This time, Himu placed a whole beam of you, showing just how much he valued this sacrifice. Himu then led the tribe in worshiping you. After the tree tribe experienced such a bountiful harvest, they knew you were the one who had taught them everything. Not a single person in the tribe had any doubts anymore. Nearly everyone had become a devout believer. From this one ceremony, you received as much as several previous rituals combined. In terms of the power of faith, a massive surge of faith. Power flowed into you, giving you a sudden rush of pure bliss. After the worship ended, Himu announced to the tribe that from now on the great ancient tree would be called God, the one and only God of the tree tribe. You were stunned for a second, and hearing that familiar word, you quickly realized that this must have something to do with Shanzi. By now, Shanzi had long been wanting to call you that, but you'd always shut that down before. Deep down you feel that you aren't being called a god just yet, but this time with Kuroki leading the charge. You realize there's no stopping them now. Even if you forced every single one of them to stop using that title, they'd probably just come up with some other name for you anyway. After thinking it over, you decide to just let it happen. Still, just being called God sounds a bit too plain. You finally speak up. Fine, if that's how it is, then you shall call me the tree god. Hearing the ancient tree's voice, and realizing you've accepted them, the tribe erupts in pure joy. Kuroki immediately leads his people in a thunderous chant. Great tree god! Great tree god! And just like that, you gained a new identity. With the gift of agricultural knowledge, the tree tribe never has to worry about going hungry again. Later on, you use your unique powers to help them cultivate crops with even higher yields. With the power of their faith fueling you, you spend the next few years selectively breeding plants grow lightning fast and produce massive harvests. Nowadays, the tree tribe no longer depends on the dangers of hunting to survive. Instead, they've fully transitioned into a farming society. But you didn't stop there. You also had them capture wild beasts to begin the process of taming them as livestock. 5 years pass, and yet another small wandering tribe merges into the tree tribe. By now, the tree tribe's population has swelled to 230 people. It has evolved into a truly formidable community, with more followers than ever believing in you. The amount of faith you harvest reaches new heights. You've accumulated so much energy within you that it feels like it's filling every single inch of your massive wooden body. Suddenly, on a total whim, you decide to take control of all that faith energy. Before you let that energy merge into your trunk, you were just hoarding all that power of faith, putting it to use. But the moment that massive surge of faith flooded your body, everything changed. You could feel your massive frame starting to grow once again. Your current body, it had actually stopped growing nearly 100 years ago. Through all those long years, there wasn't even a hint that you'd ever get any bigger. You never would have guessed that a simple experiment today would actually kickstart your growth all over again. Your trunk began to swell outward. The roots beneath you grew longer and thicker, and the branches at your crown reached desperately for the sky. The great tree began to tower, surpassing 50 meters and climbing higher, not stopping until you hit a full 100 meters tall. Now, you stand as tall and imposing as a mountain. Your trunk is way more massive than before. It would take at least 7 or 8 people holding hands just to circle around it. This incredible transformation happened in the blink of an eye. It only took about 10 or 15 minutes. All that noise and movement from your growth naturally startled the people of the tree tribe. They all rushed out of their homes, looking up to see you shooting toward the heavens. Every single one of them was paralyzed with shock, staring at a presence that went far beyond their wildest dreams. When Kuroki saw what was happening to you, he was so hyped that he sprinted right up to your trunk. As soon as you reached that 100-meter mark, Kuroki suddenly felt something inside him. A new surge of power had awakened. He couldn't help but let that power explode outward. With a massive boom, a brilliant green light erupted from Kuroki's body. And right behind him, that phantom image of a tree made of green light. also began to slowly rise and stretch, almost as if it were growing right alongside you. Even though you've grown so huge, your senses are still just as sharp as they've always been. You haven't become slow or dull just because of your massive size. Felt it immediately, the shift happening in Kuroki right beneath your branches. You turned your full attention toward him. It only took a few glances for you to realize exactly what was changing inside him. The bloodline power flowing through Kuroki comes from the same source as your own divine form. Before, you could always sense his bloodline, almost like he was just a tiny twig at the very end of one of your branches. But now that connection felt even more intense. Your own sudden growth had caused the bloodline power within Kuroki to surge, and that's exactly why he couldn't stop that power from erupting out of him so uncontrollably. The phantom shadow looming behind him didn't last for very long. After only a few minutes, he was able to rein in the power inside his body once again. Still, Kuroki's mind was swirling with questions. At the same time, the people of the tree tribe began to gather around. When it came to the tree god they worshipped, a transformative was something they couldn't possibly ignore. You spoke up telling them there was no need to worry. This is simply a natural part of my growth. Hearing your voice, the tribespeople finally felt at ease. If their tree god said there was no problem, then everything was definitely okay. They all bowed deeply toward you before heading back to their own business. Only Kuroki stayed behind under your shade for a moment. He looked up and asked, "Great tree god, just now I felt the power within me become much stronger." "You're not imagining it," you replied. "The bloodline power in your body has indeed been strengthened." Kuroki raised his hand and stared at it, then clenched his fist to test the feeling of his new strength. He looked up once more. "Great tree god, is it possible for you to bestow this kind of power again? Do you truly desire even more power?" you asked. Kuroki shook his head. "No, great tree god. I'm asking for the sake of the rest of my tribe. Right now I'm the one who has this strength. I want the others to have it as well." But you didn't give him the answer he was hoping for. Truth is, you've been wondering about one thing too, and that's whether these primitive humans actually possess their own hidden bloodline powers. Over the last few years, you've been completely focused on nurturing the god tree, while the tribe stayed busy with farming and taming animals. You just haven't had a spare moment to really look into it. Haimu, you should head back now. When the time is right, I'll naturally grant you more power. Haimu gave a respectful nod and quickly turned to make his exit. Once he was gone, you began to examine your own form very carefully. If Haimu's bloodline power was granted directly from you, then do you actually have that same power within yourself? You started testing and experimenting nonstop, but a clear answer won't be coming anytime soon. By now, you've grown to a height of 100 meters. Such a massive change isn't able to hide anymore. Far beyond the borders of the tribe, high up in the mountain range, a group of people were lurking in the thick brush. They were closing in on a forest deer for the kill. One of them happened to glance toward the horizon and immediately froze when he saw a colossal tree. That lush, massive canopy looked like a mountain of emerald green rising from the earth. He frantically tapped his friend's shoulder, wanting someone to confirm if what he saw was real, or if he was just losing his mind. His companion swatted his hand away and hissed, "Quiet, but wait, look over there. Is that a giant tree reaching into the sky?" "What tree? Your eyes must be playing tricks on you. We're literally in a forest, man. What are you even talking about?" As he spoke, he looked up out of curiosity. He too was instantly stunned by that impossibly tall tree. What even is that?" "I know there was nothing there when we arrived. We have to get back and tell now." Without a second thought, they abandoned the hunt. They whistled sharply toward the thickets, and soon a pack of hunting dogs came racing to their side. Teal-colored venomous snakes slithered out from every nook and cranny, only to be caught right on the arms of several tribesmen. Even though these were deadly vipers, they didn't even try to bite these men. With their snakes and hunting gear in hand, they hurried down the mountain, constantly glancing back at the giant tree on the horizon, making sure they weren't just seeing things. As they made it halfway down the slope, the massive mountains blocked that giant tree from their view. Terrified that the great tree might just vanish, they traded worried looks and scrambled back up a bit higher. Only when they saw the tree was still there did they finally catch their breath and relax. Then they bolted back toward their village. Bai-Yin had grown much taller now, and he could see much further than ever before. To the west, there were massive mountain ranges, and these peaks completely blocked Bai-Yin's line of sight. All he could see were those mountains. But Bai-Yin knew better. Hidden behind those towering peaks lived the incredibly powerful snake tribe. Bai Feng would scout the snake tribe every now and then, so Bai-Yin had kept a close eye on their growth. Over all these years, right now, the snake tribe still had about 300 people. mostly surviving through the hunt. They actually raised snakes to help them track their prey. Since they were surrounded by mountains, they never really struggled to find food. However, 300 people was pretty much the absolute limit for a tribe like theirs. Any more than that, and they wouldn't be able to feed everyone. Bayan then shifted his gaze in a different direction. To the north, there was a vast open wilderness, though more mountains loomed in the far distance. He didn't spot any tribes in that area yet. Maybe the tree tribe could expand that way in the future. To the south was a thick jungle, but Bai Yun didn't see any signs of life there for now. But as he turned his eyes toward the east, looking past the old hill that used to block his vision, he quickly spotted another tribe. It was a group of people living right along the banks of a river. Bai Yen gazed into the far distance, where he could make out several low-built houses. There were quite a lot of them too. After doing some quick math, Bai Yen figured, this tribe might actually be bigger than the tree tribe. But the thing that really blew his mind was seeing actual patches of farmland. Yeah, you heard that right, farmland. He was sure his eyes weren't playing tricks on him. He could even see little black dots, busy toiling away in those fields. In other words, there was already another tribe that had figured out how to farm. Bai Yen estimated the distance between this new tribe and the tree tribe, guessing it was about 10 or 15 kilometers. That really isn't that far. Even if someone were walking, they'd be there in no time. Bai Yen realized the tree tribe would probably end up dealing with them sooner or later. It suddenly hit him that he still had so much to learn about this world. He found Bai Feng taking a break and got ready to give him a task. As soon as Bai Feng woke up and recognized Bai Yun's voice, he scrambled to respond, "Hey boss Bai, what are your orders? I want you to start from the tree tribe and gradually spiral outward. Find every single tribe living in the surrounding area. This is going to take some time, so there's no need to rush. Once you find them, take note of where they are, and then come back and tell me everything." Bai Yen couldn't move his own body, but he had plenty of minions to help. Being a Bi Bai Feng, could fly around without being noticed, making him the perfect scout for the job. Bai Feng gave a sharp nod. "I'm on it, boss. I won't let you down. Boss Bai, I'm heading out now. Go out there." Once Bai Feng had left, Bai Yen scanned the horizon once more, but for now, there was nothing new to find. Bai Yen fell deep into thought. That tribe that managed to figure out farming, he wondered if that knowledge was something they discovered on their own, or if there was some hidden force guiding them from behind. If there really was something behind that tribe, some kind of totem spirit just like himself, directing their path, then he would have to be on high alert. Bai Yen realized his current arsenal was still too small, so he went back to his research. Most of his power of faith had been spent on growth, and he didn't have much left in the tank right now. Still, Bai Yen wasn't worried. The energy he'd burned through would be fully replenished in just a few days. He wondered if he had any other tricks up his sleeve. Bai Yen tried to awaken the bloodline power within him, but after several attempts he couldn't find a single lead. He had no choice but to set it aside for the moment. Just then he felt a sudden vibration on one of his roots. It was the one that stretched deep into the nearby river. Bai Yen knew exactly who was messing with his roots. Down in the river, a spirit turtle with a fish in its mouth was using its claws to shake Bai Yan's root. This little turtle was the same totem that the turtle tribe used to worship. Later on, he ended up becoming Bai Yan's little sidekick. But he wasn't like Bai Feng. Bai Feng followed Bai Yan out of genuine loyalty. But this turtle, he was just terrified of Bai Yan's power and was basically forced into being his lackey. To be fair, Bai Yan never actually restricted his freedom. He could have left whenever he wanted. But the little guy was such a coward that he hadn't dared to leave for several years now. That's likely why he let those primitives drag him off to be their totem spirit, without ever putting up a fight. Bai Yan extended his roots, snatching the fish right out of the turtle. But this time Zhuangyi didn't just leave like he usually did. After delivering his tribute, instead he kept nudging the roots lingering there. Bai Yan guessed the turtle might have something on his mind, so he sent a message back through his roots. "Zhuangyi, do you need something from me?" The turtle nodded frantically, and asked in a tiny, careful voice, "Great one, I noticed that you've grown quite a bit today." "Indeed." Hearing this, the turtle felt a surge of joy, though he still asked nervously, "Great one, how did you manage to do that?" As soon as the question left his mouth, he panicked and added, "Great one, please don't misunderstand, I didn't mean anything by it. If you don't want to say, then please just forget I asked." Bai Yan's interest was piqued. This turtle had been following him for several years now, bringing him fish every single day. He was definitely loyal. Bai Yan happened to have a few ideas he wanted to test out anyway. "Stay still and don't struggle, gonna pull you up to the treetops." When Zhuangyi heard that, He was so terrified he almost dove into the water to bolt, but he was too scared to even run. He just pulled his head and limbs straight into his shell, letting his body sink helplessly into the depths. Bai Yan reached out with a long branch, plunging it into the water like a tentacle to wrap around the turtle. Hoisting him all the way up to the highest branches, Bai Yan tapped on the hard shell and said, "All right, quit hiding in there like a coward. Hurry up and poke your head out." Only then did the turtle cautiously peek his head out. "Great one, why did you bring me up here? Weren't you just asking how I grew so much?" The turtle shook his head violently. "No! I'm not asking anymore. I promise I'm not asking." Bai Yan stopped teasing the poor guy and got straight to the point. "Relax, I'm not going to eat you. I actually have a job for you to do." The black turtle nodded frantically. "Great one. Just as long as you need. Tell me, what do you need me to do? Anything." The truth was Bai Yan had summoned him because he wanted to experiment with bloodline power. Previously, Bai Feng had relied on one of Bai Yan's branches to successfully awaken his own bloodline power. Now Bai Yan wanted to see if it was possible to trigger an awakening without using a branch at all. And in Bai Yan's eyes, this black turtle was the perfect test subject. Bai Yan gave him a brief explanation of how bloodline power worked. The turtle listened, but he was completely lost. He didn't really get it at all. "Great one! I've never even seen this bloodline power before. How on earth am I supposed to awaken it?" "Don't you worry. I'll guide you through it." He was ready to use the turtle for another trial run. Bloodline power originates from deep within the body. It is a force hidden inside of you. This was the conclusion that Bai Yan had drawn after watching both Hai Mu and Bai Feng go through things. Now he just hoped the turtle would pull through and manifest that power quickly, so he'd finally have a solid reference point. Bai Yan heard a sudden vibration and knew that Bai Feng was finally back from his mission. Bai Yan pulled him into the shelter of the leaves and listened as he reported the results of his scouting trip. "Boss Bai, I flew in a massive circle, and I managed to find 3 different tribes. One of them is the snake tribe I told you about before." Since Bai Yan already knew quite a bit about the snake tribe, Bai Feng only mentioned them briefly. He continued, "The second tribe is over to the east, and they call themselves the Green Cow tribe. Their totem is a massive green ox." As soon as Bai Yan heard that, he knew this tribe was the exact same one he had encountered before. "That tribe I spotted earlier, the one that knows how to farm. It turns out they're called the Azure Ox tribe." Bai Feng says these guys are tough. Honestly, maybe even tougher than the snake tribe. They raise a ton of those Azure oxen, using them to plow the fields and haul heavy loads, with those massive beasts helping out. Life for the people in that tribe seems pretty easy. I'd bet anything that they even use those oxen when they go to war. Yet another massive tribe, the threat they pose is probably every bit as high as the snake tribes. The third tribe is located way down south. I had to fly over that massive forest for ages before I finally stumbled upon them. This one's called the Tiger tribe, and they worship a fierce tiger as their totem. But they don't stay in one place for long. They're constantly roaming around. Because of that, I wasn't able to dig up much intel on what they're actually like. The Tiger tribe, Bai Yan made a mental note of it. A tribe with pretty fuzzy intel. It seems like all of these tribes choose some kind of animal to be their totem. Bai Yan thought it over for a moment. It made a lot of sense. After all, wild beasts can hunt and move. So in terms of pure danger, they're way more threatening to these primitives than a tree. When you look at it that way, the tree tribe with a literal tree as their totem is definitely the odd one out. Though it's a good thing Bai Yan isn't just some ordinary tree. If he were just a normal plant, the tree tribe would have definitely swapped totems ages ago. You've worked hard lately, Bai Feng. Thinking this Bai Yan condensed a single drop of sap. Consider this your reward. The moment Bai Feng saw the sap, he scrambled to catch it. He gulped it down right away. Thanks, boss Bai. As soon as he swallowed the sap, Bai Feng immediately closed his eyes. It didn't take long for Bai Yan to notice. A layer of mist was swirling out from his body. The mist slowly coalesced into the shape of a bee, and then another cloud of green mist appeared. But as soon as that mist showed up, the bee mist snatched it, slowly absorbing it into its own body. By the time all that green mist was gone, the bee's physical size had actually grown a bit. Watching this play out, Bai Yan started to get some new ideas. Bloodline power. It seems it can be strengthened by devouring the bloodlines of other creatures. When Bai Feng finally opened his eyes again, Bai Yan started asking him more about how that bloodline power felt inside of him. To be honest, Bai Feng didn't really get it either. Ever since he'd first awakened this power, he hadn't really used it much at all. So Bai Yan took him to see the black turtle. When Bai Feng saw the giant turtle resting in the leaves, he was completely blown away. "Hey boss, is this your new little underling?" Something like that. The black turtle has actually been with me for a long time now. But he used to stay in the water, so you never got the chance to meet him. Beifeng flew over the black turtle, circling around him to get a good look. The black trying so hard for so long, but he still hadn't managed to awaken his bloodline. Bai Yan figured he was just missing one key piece, and once they found it, he'd definitely awaken too. After looking the turtle over, Beifeng asked Bai Yan, "Hey boss, does this guy just sleep like this all the time?" Sleeping, Bai Yan reached out one tentacle and touched the turtle's forehead, sensing a total blank. Wow, he really is just sleeping. Bai Yan picked up a branch and went thump 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 against the shell. The black turtle jolted awake instantly, lifting his head and looking around in a total daze. Seeing him like this, Beifeng was cracking up on the side. But only Bai Yan could actually understand what his laughter meant. To the black tortoise, it just sounded like a bunch of buzzing. He also finally remembered that he was still perched on Bai Yan's branches. Thinking back on what he'd just done, the black tortoise started feeling a bit panicked. Bai Yan asked sternly, "Tortoise, didn't I tell you to try and awaken your bloodline power? I can't believe you were just sleeping here." The black tortoise opened its mouth to make an excuse, but in the end, it just silently hung its head. It said, feeling wronged, "Master, I really can't seem to awaken any bloodline power at all." Chapter 17, Everyone Writes in Characters. Bai Yan let out a heavy, helpless sigh. "What exactly have you been feeling these past few days? Tell me everything in detail." Bai Yan then started wondering if he could use his own consciousness to pull Beifeng into the conversation as well. Kinda like a group chat. Bai Yan gave it a shot and found out it actually worked. So now Beifeng could hear everything the black tortoise was saying. "Master, I've been following the method you taught me these past few days, trying to feel the power inside my body. I can definitely feel the power. But as for how to use it to trigger my bloodline, I'm totally clueless. I'm starting to I just don't have any bloodline power in me." The black tortoise sounded pretty discouraged. Bai Yan thought for a moment. He couldn't rule that out. But back when the black tortoise was a totem and people drank its blood, it gave them an incredible boost in defense. So its bloodline really shouldn't be weak at all. Bai Yan then turned to Beifeng and asked, "What did it feel like for you when you first awakened your bloodline power?" Beifeng remembered that Bai Yan had already asked him this once before. Since he was asking again, he figured he probably hadn't given the right answer the first time. Beifeng racked his brain, trying his hardest to remember exactly what happened during his awakening. Suddenly, a look of pure realization washed over his face. "I remember now. Back then, I drank the sap boss Bai gave me, and I felt this surge of power inside my body. I thought about absorbing all that energy, and once it was pulled into my system, it started flowing through every part. I just kept thinking to myself, this is my body. Before I knew it, I'd awakened it. That bloodline power boss Bai was talking about." Bai Yan thought to himself, maybe bloodline power really can't be awakened on its own. It needs an outside spark to trigger it. "Alright, Xuangi, I'll give you a drop of my sap. Try one more time and see if you can awaken your bloodline." Bai Yan condensed a single drop of sap and handed it over to Xuangui. As soon as Xuangui consumed it, a green mist immediately began swirling around his body. After a little while, the green mist faded away, and a dark black haze took its place. Bai Yan's jaw hit the floor. Well, figuratively, since he doesn't actually have a jaw. But the shock was totally real. Xuangui opened his eyes shortly after. He knew right then that he'd done it. He'd awakened the bloodline power Bai Yan mentioned. "Thank you, my lord, for the gift of your sap, and for helping me awaken." Bai Yan went quiet. He was certain now. Bloodline power definitely requires an external force to awaken. But then who was going to help him? He wanted to awaken his own bloodline power too. After cooling his head, Bai Yan sent Xuangi back into the river. He decided to put this bloodline stuff aside for now, and focused on exploring other methods instead. But now that he knew the secret to unlocking bloodline power, he stationed Haimu at the tree tribe. After picking out a group of people, he granted them some of his branches, just as Bai Yan expected. Everyone who received a branch successfully awakened their bloodline powers. However, once they awakened, they were all surrounded by a green mist, manifesting in the form of Bai Yan's great tree. So Bai Yan decided to run an experiment. He took some blood from both Beifeng and the black tortoise, then fed it to two different people. Out of these two, the one whose blood failed to awaken, but the other one actually succeeded, except the image formed by his bloodline power turned out to be a tortoise. This terrified him so much he kept kowtowing to Bai Yan, thinking he'd done something terribly wrong. It wasn't until Bai Yan explained things that the man finally realized he had consumed the blood of a tree god guardian That's right. Bai Yan had just given Bai Feng and the Black Tortoise a new title, the Tree God Guardians. Once the man heard that, his newly awakened power was only that of a guardian. He felt totally crushed. Everyone else got the Tree God's own bloodline, and he was the only unlucky one. He really wanted to swap it out, but he didn't have the guts to ask Bai Yan. Little did he know if he'd just spoken up, Bai Yan would have definitely given him another drop of sap, to see if it was possible to overwrite the power he'd already awakened. Through this experiment, Bai Yan finally figured it out as these primitive folks consume blood packed with massive energy. They've got a shot at awakening their bloodline. They might even be able to cultivate it, though he hasn't found a way to train them yet. Now with a squad of bloodline warriors ready, the tree tribe's power has reached a whole new level. As the tribe grew stronger, their territory began to expand, and they started making contact with two nearby tribes, the Snake Tribe and the Green Ox Tribe. Once the Green Ox people met the Tree Tribe, they realized both tribes practiced farming. They had a lot in common, so they started hanging out quite often. The Green Ox people would bring over the oxen they raised to help the Tree Tribe plow their fields. In return, the Tree Tribe gave them livestock, animals, that the Tree Tribe members had bred themselves. But since they hadn't been domesticated for long, they were still pretty wild. Bai Yan didn't do anything to stop this interaction. On the other hand, the Snake Tribe was a totally different story. They barely talked. The Snake Tribe lived off hunting, so they really didn't have much to talk about with the Tree Tribe. That winter, the weather turned freezing, much colder than usual. It even started to snow, which was incredibly rare. In all of Bai Yan's memories, he could count the times it had snowed on one hand. When the cold snap hit, the Tree Tribe hunkered down in their stone houses, staying inside to keep warm. Luckily, since they'd learned how to farm, the grain they harvested was more than enough to last them through the winter. Mu Yan pulled his animal furs tighter around him, but he was still shivering so hard he couldn't stop rubbing his hands. He slowly walked up to Bai Yan and looked up at the massive ancient tree. Lord Tree God, it's so freezing this year. Do we really have to come out for lessons right now? You see, lately, Mu Yan had been learning how to write from Bai Yan, back his old mother tongue, and by matching it with the primitive's speech, he began teaching them how to read and write. And the very first person to learn from him was Mu Yan, who had once studied farming by his side. Mu Yan was all grown up now, standing tall and sturdy. Bai Yan gave himself a little shake, and a huge shower of water droplets came raining down from the branches. Mu Yan quickly threw his hands over his head, trying to block as many of the drops as he could. The weather had been freezing lately, and this year's winter was especially brutal, causing the game the Snake Tribe hunted to plummet. They hadn't had a bite to eat for several days, so they started eyeing the Tree Tribe as their next target. Under the cover of darkness, a group of them began slowly creeping toward the Tree Tribe's camp. Meanwhile, in the biting wind, the Tree Tribe warriors who were supposed to be on patrol were all huddled inside, warming themselves by the fire. They figured that in the dead of winter, no wild beast would even think about attacking the village. That was the problem. The guards they'd posted were only there to keep an eye out for animals. It never crossed anyone's mind that another tribe might attack. But for the Snake Tribe to pull off this ambush, they first had to cross a small river. One by one they stepped into the water, wading through the ice-cold current. The water made a faint splashing sound, but it didn't catch a single person's attention. Well, except for one someone who wasn't human, and that was Bai Yan, who was now a tree. Bai Yan's gaze swept across the area, and he immediately locked onto the Snake Tribe group crossing the river. Even though it was pitch black outside, it didn't mess with Bai Yan's vision one bit. After all, he didn't rely on eyes to see things anymore. Should he warn the Tree Tribe people? Bai Yan weighed the question in his mind. He could clearly see that the Tree Tribe had absolutely no idea what was coming. If he didn't give them a heads up, people were definitely going to get hurt. As for anyone actually dying, with Bai Yan watching over them, he wasn't about to let that happen. However, Bai Yan still issued a final warning. Heimu was the very first one Bai Yan awakened. Next were the ones who had accepted the power of the Bloodline warriors. In Bai Yan's eyes, these people were like extensions of his own being. He could sense their presence effortlessly. He could even reach out to them directly. Bai Yan hadn't tested whether he could actually control them, and he had no intention of running that experiment just yet. The moment Heimu woke up, he threw on his clothes and bolted out the door. His wife, who was sleeping right beside him, woke up in a total daze. She reached out and realized he was already gone. Startled, she scrambled out of bed as fast as she could. Heimu grabbed his long spear, kicked open the door, and charged out. At that very same moment, his fellows were also bursting out of their homes, Himu raised his arm and roared, "Everyone follow me!" His expression was grim, but he was filled with even more regret. They'd been too careless. Every single one of them had been far too relaxed. If it hadn't been for the tree god's warning, they probably would have been slaughtered in their beds, without ever knowing what hit them. Himu led his men straight toward the riverbank. There were only 15 of them in total. But these 15 were all elite warriors who had awakened their bloodline power. The pride of the tree tribe, the snake tribe attackers numbered over 100. They had brought nearly every able-bodied man they had. However, Bai Yin felt that these 15 were more than enough to handle them. But then again, Himu didn't underestimate the enemy as Bai Yan expected. While leading his men to the river, he shouted at the top of his lungs to alert the others. Very quickly, the rest of the tree tribe also began snapping their deep sleep, hearing Himu's frantic cries, even though they had no idea what was going on. But they all threw on their clothes, grabbed their weapons, and bolted out the door. Down by the river, the snake tribe had just finished crossing. Before the group even had a chance to catch their breath, they heard frantic shouting echoing from the tree tribe's camp. The snake tribe chief realized right then that they'd been spotted. A sneak attack was officially off the table. "Chief, what's the move?" one of the tribesmen asked urgently. "Tear them apart even without the element of surprise. We're gonna wipe every last one of them out tonight." The snake tribe chief was oozing confidence. After all, they were the snake tribe, natural-born hunters, who worshipped the snake king himself. They were elite warriors and predators. But what was the tree tribe? Just a bunch of losers reduced to digging in the dirt for scraps. Exactly in the eyes of the snake tribe. The fact that the tree tribe farmed, pathetic sign of weakness. Only the weak, only women, would waste time gathering seeds and fruit just to keep their bellies full. Kill them. The chief gripped his long spear and charged at the very front of the pack, leading hundreds of his men. They crashed toward the tree tribe like a devastating tidal wave. Blackwood finally made it to the scene, and seeing the snake tribe charging in for the kill, everyone was absolutely livid. He let out a massive roar, "Hold them back!" He lunged forward alone, a strange mist beginning to swirl all around his body. In the dead of night, the mist wasn't very obvious. From a distance, you could barely see it at all. When the snake tribe chief saw Blackwood charging solo, he let out a manic laugh. "You've got a death wish." He thrust his spear straight at Blackwood, the strike moving with blinding speed. If it were anyone else, they would have been skewered instantly and died on the spot. But Blackwood was far from ordinary. In almost 10 years, since he first awakened his bloodline power, over these past 10 years, he had already mastered this overwhelming power. Himu swung his spear in a massive arc, hit with heavy force and blinding speed. He struck first, slamming his weapon against the snake tribe leader's spear. The impact sent the snake leader reeling, barely managing to keep his feet, his heart racing as he realized just how strong Himu really was. But Himu didn't give him a second thought after knocking him back. Instead, he dove straight into the thick of the fight, shrouded in the glow of his bloodline power. It acted like a suit of impenetrable armor, making it impossible for any ordinary warrior to leave a scratch, even facing a crowd 100 times his size. He didn't show a single flicker of fear. His spear danced through the chaos, carving through the enemy as if they weren't even there. He was like a god of war. Chapter 19, Amid Battle. Seeing this, the snake leader charged back in, raising his spear to intercept Himu. Himu saw it was the same guy he just swatted away, and didn't take him seriously at all. But as their weapons locked this time, Himu suddenly realized this guy had gotten significantly stronger. It turned out the snake tribe leader had also received a blessing from their sacred totem. Although his bloodline power hadn't fully awakened yet, his internal strength was far beyond any normal human. As Himu traded blows with him, he felt this man was way tougher than Gishan of the tortoise tribe, easily several times stronger. But Himu's own power had long since surpassed who he used to be. A massive surge of energy erupted within him. The blood-red aura on his arms morphed into vine-like patterns, wrapping tightly around him to boost his strength. That crimson energy even flowed down, coating his spear. The snake leader grew more terrified with every strike, his own vitality being drained away. Meanwhile, his opponent seemed to be getting stronger the longer they fought. Boom! The two spears slammed into each other. The snake leader was thrown back several steps by the shockwave, but Himu, he didn't move an inch. Instead, he surged forward with another burst of power. Himu stared intently at the spear in his opponent's grip. With every heavy collision, that weapon began to reveal its true extraordinary power. This was definitely no ordinary stone spear. If Himu hadn't been using his bloodline energy to reinforce his own weapon, his spear would have surely shattered into pieces long ago. While the two were locked in combat, Other tree tribe warriors began flooding onto the battlefield. The tree tribe only started out with roughly a dozen people, but those mere 12 or so warriors were somehow holding back a charge of nearly 100 men. What's more, these guys didn't seem to fear getting hurt at all. Move into the crowd like absolute madmen with no regard for their lives. Yet somehow the crowd couldn't land a single solid hit on those 12. Soon, more and more tree tribe warriors joined the fray. The snake tribe started taking heavy casualties. Right at that moment, someone suddenly screamed, "Watch out, snakes!" A warrior was struck by a venomous snake that appeared out of nowhere. Before long, his head began to spin and his vision went blurry. He couldn't keep his feet and collapsed heavily to the dirt. And the viper that bit him was already darting toward its next victim. That sudden cry distracted Heimu for just a split second. The snake tribe chief seized the opening. He whipped out a tiny snake from his robe. The bright red little serpent shot out like an arrow, aiming straight for Heimu's throat. A smug, wicked grin spread across the chief's face. This snake was a lethal viper he'd received from the Snake King itself. If it landed even a single bite, even a man would drop dead in a single heartbeat. But Heimu's neck was as hard as solid granite. The viper's fangs couldn't pierce his skin no matter how hard it tried. Heimu snatched the little snake right out of the air. Heimu let out a cold, mocking laugh. His entire body was completely shielded by the power of his bloodline. There was no way that venomous snake was going to land a bite on him. He clamped his hand down with brutal, crushing force. The little snake's body literally popped right in the middle from the pressure. Heimu casually tossed the severed head back toward the chief. The snake tribe chief stared in total stunned disbelief at the mangled head that was all that remained in his hand. A murderous rage flared up in his eyes. How dare you slaughter the offspring of the great Snake King? Today the snake tribe will not rest until every last one of you is dead. He bellowed at the top of his lungs. Warriors of the snake tribe, for our king, for our people, offer up your very lives. With that, he took the carcass of the dead hatchling and shoved it straight into his mouth. He crunched down violently and swallowed it whole. Hearing his command, many of the other snake tribe warriors followed suit and did the exact same thing. They reached into their robes and pulled out shriveled, dried-up snake corpses, stuffing them into their mouths and chewing them down like animals. Heimu didn't know what kind of dark ritual this was, but his gut told him things were about to get ugly. He quickly shouted, "Everyone stay on your guard!" Right then, Heimu watched as the snake tribe chief standing before him began to emit a strange, thick mist from every pore. Bloodline power. Heimu recognized that aura in an instant. It was definitely bloodline power. He never expected the chief to trigger a sudden awakening. Right here in the heat of battle, the mist surrounding his body turned a deep bloody crimson, drifted off his skin. It began to coil behind his back, manifesting into the ethereal silhouette of a massive red serpent. Among the warriors who had consumed the dried snakes, a few others also started emitting that same eerie mist. Clearly, they had managed to tap into their bloodline power as well. Watching from high above, Bai Yan was also completely taken aback by this development. He hadn't realized the snake tribe possessed the potential to awaken like this. Just then he noticed something else. As for those who'd been bitten by the venomous snakes and collapsed, their fellow tribesmen had already carried them away from the heat of the battle. But the venom was lethal and they had already slipped into a deep coma. Seeing this, Bai Yan took action immediately, commanding a thick tree root to burst out from the ground. Now, if these men had just been bitten by some ordinary snakes, Bai Yan probably wouldn't have bothered to step in, but it was crystal clear that the serpents brought by the snake tribe were far from your average reptiles. Bai Yan was worried the tree tribe wouldn't have a clue how to treat this kind of poison. The people tending to the wounded were a bit startled to see a tree root suddenly erupting from the earth, but they didn't freak out. They realized right away that it was the tree god they worshipped stepping in to help. Bai Yan condensed a drop of sap at the tip of the root and fed it to the poisoned warriors. This sap had powerful detoxifying properties, but it wouldn't grant the person who drank it any special bloodline powers. After swallowing the sap, the men quickly came to their senses. In fact, they were back on their feet and ready to go in no time. Seeing this miracle, the crowd bowed down to Bai Yan in pure adoration once again. Having saved the men, Bai Yan turned his attention back to the battlefield. By now, the snake tribe warriors who'd awakened their bloodline powers, bloodline warriors of the tree tribe, were locked in a brutal all-out brawl. Heimu and the snake tribe chief were also going at it. Heimu was completely shrouded in a bloody aura, clashing head-on with the snake chief. That red snake phantom on the chief's body was coiled tightly around his arms. Its head poked out, flickering its blood-red tongue. just like a real live-in serpent. It watched for any opening to strike Haimu alongside the spear thrusts. Meanwhile, the tree phantom covering Haimu, he looked a little stiff, clearly nowhere near as agile as that serpent phantom. But his defense was absolutely insane. Even when that phantom bit him, it couldn't even scratch the surface. Bai Yin watched the fight intently, spotting the flaws in Haimu's bloodline power. He took it all in, already thinking about how to fix them. The two had been clashing for quite a while now, and the Snake Tribe chief was finally starting to flag. He'd only just awakened his bloodline after all, and while his strength was pure aggression, he just couldn't match Haimu's overall balance. Haimu's power let him hit hard and recover fast, giving him incredible endurance, making him a nightmare in a long, drawn-out battle. Seeing his opponent weakening, Haimu's strikes became even more vicious. The Snake Chief was barely hanging on, forced back with every block. Spear strike after spear strike rained down, leaving him with absolutely no room to breathe, let alone counter. Suddenly, someone from the Snake Tribe screamed, "Go help the chief!" Hearing the shout, Haimu lunged forward with everything he had. His blood energy flared up like a wildfire, condensing into a massive spear of pure essence. As Haimu thrust his physical spear, that phantom spear of blood followed its lead, streaking through the air right at the Snake Chief's heart. Yes, Bai Yin couldn't help but cheer. Haimu was having a breakthrough right in the middle of the fight, projecting his bloodline his body, and unlocking a whole new level of skill. As that blood spear barreled toward him, the Snake Chief felt an overwhelming pressure slam into him. His entire body went completely numb. Every instinct told him to run, but he couldn't move a single muscle. Only the serpent phantom coiled around him, let out a final desperate hiss. Boom! Haimu's spear tore right through the man's chest, ripping half of his body to pieces. Chapter 20, The Fire of Faith. The warriors of the Snake Tribe let out a collective wail of despair. Haimu pulls back his spear and stands tall. He stands right over the fallen body of the Snake Clan chief. Not a single soul dares to step near him. Seeing Haimu crush his opponent, the Tree Tribe warriors went wild. Their blood started pumping and their morale hit the roof. They began fighting with even more animalistic fury. The Snake Tribe finally hit their breaking point and crumbled. Someone let out a terrified scream. "Out of here, we're no match for these guys." Watching from the sidelines, Bayan saw the whole thing clearly. The Snake Tribe members at the back of the battlefield. Some of them were already tucking tail and running for their lives. Haimu let out a massive roar. "Kill!" Every single Tree Tribe warrior roared back in unison, "Kill!" That single cry ripped right through the clouds. It sent a shiver through the entire wasteland. Even Bayan got swept up in that intense energy. He felt a sudden irresistible urge to join the fight, and he didn't just stand there, he actually made a move. A bunch of vine tentacles suddenly burst from deep underground. They snatched up several of the fleeing Snake Tribe members. With just a tiny squeeze from the vines, those guys couldn't take the pressure. They were crushed to death by the tentacles instantly. Even Bayan was a bit startled by what he'd done. He originally just wanted to tie them up a little tighter, but it seems he seriously underestimated his own strength. Being a massive tree now, what he considers giving it a little nudge for any other living creature is a force that's impossible to survive. After a quick moment of shock, Bayan let go of the lifeless bodies. Then his tentacles went right back to work, grabbing several more of the cowards trying to escape, and snapping them all like dry twigs. Bayan looked off into the distance. The first few guys who had bolted at the start had already made it across the small river. Bayan thought about it for a second, but he decided to just let those few go. Most of the Snake Tribe's fighting men had already been wiped out in this battle. Even if those survivors made it back home, they wouldn't be able to cause any more trouble. With all their grown men gone, and no way to get enough food, the Snake Tribe is as good as dead this winter. Bayan looked back, remembering how cautious he'd been when he first heard of them, and now he couldn't help but laugh at himself. He never imagined the Tree Tribe would grow this or become this powerful. As for the remaining Snake Tribe warriors, Haimu and his men finished every last one of them off. Not a single soul was left alive. After all, it was the Snake Tribe who struck first, and if Bai Yun hadn't warned them, the Tree Tribe would have been the ones slaughtered tonight. Haimu wasn't about to show those bastards any mercy. The group gathered up the bodies, piled them into a heap, and set them ablaze with a massive fire. By the time they finished cleaning up, the sun was already high in the sky, and that long, brutal night was finally over. Haimu led the tribe's people to Bai Yan, and was the first to fall to his knees. "Mighty Tree God, you have saved our tribe once again. We will bring you our finest offerings to thank you for your incredible protection." Behind him, the rest of the tribe bowed in worship. Bai Yan replied, "Rise, everyone. Haimu, you did well today, leading our people to hold the line against..." Haimu lifted his head, beaming with pride. But then Bai Yan's voice turned cold, but you were all far too careless. If I hadn't been watching over you, your tribe would have been the one wiped out last night. Everyone hung their heads in deep shame. Heimu hurriedly bowed his head to the ground. Great tree god, it's all my fault, I failed you. Bai Yan gave them a stern warning. Mark my words, out there in the world beyond your borders, there are many tribes far more powerful than you. If you keep being this reckless, your downfall is only a matter of time. The members of the tree tribe were all face down on the ground, not daring to utter a single word. This was the very first time the tree god they worshipped had ever shown such rage, and no one dared to even twitch. Heimu was more on edge than anyone else. He remembered asking Bai Yan about this before, specifically regarding how totems worked. He knew all too well that a totem could pack up and own. If the great tree god decided to abandon the tree tribe because of this, they would lose their divine protection in an instant. A tribe without protection is a tribe destined to crumble, or even be wiped out entirely. Bai Yan was really just giving them a stern warning. He didn't actually have any intention of doing anything drastic. Alright, I'll let this slide for now, he said. Just make sure you're more careful from now on. Heimu gulped and replied, Lord Tree God, I'll take care of this immediately. Consider it done. The crowd lingered for a few more moments, only slowly backing away once they were sure Bai Yan was finished speaking. Right then, Bai Feng's voice buzzed right into Bai Yan's ear. Hey Boss White, those guys, they're from that snake handling crew, right? Bai Yan chuckled. You got it. Still holding a grudge over that snake bite, are you? Bai Feng shook his head vigorously and said, Boss? I almost kicked the bucket that time. If you hadn't stepped my skin, this world would have been -1 little bee a long time ago. How could I ever forget that? Yeah, Bai Yan muttered. It really was a close call. Bai Feng had wanted to stick around. But the temperature in the area was climbing higher and higher, and the heat was becoming more than he could handle. Boss, I'm gonna head out first. It's getting way too uncomfortable in here. It's not just the heat either. I feel like I'm starting to hear things. It's like 1,000 voices are all whispering in my ear at once. Bai Yan knew exactly what was happening. This was another power of the Flame of Faith, the ability to create hallucinations. It starts with auditory hallucinations, where you begin to hear the inner thoughts of countless people. If your mind isn't rock solid, your mind would literally shatter into pieces. Then come the hallucinations, making you feel like you've become someone else entirely. One wrong move, and you'll lose yourself forever. The fire of being wild. Bai Yan steals his nerves. If it's a fire, then I'll use this very flame to forge my form. He acts immediately, beginning to bend the flames to his will. Bai Yan tries to push his consciousness deep into the fire. In an instant, it's like he's hearing the echoes of 1,000,000 prayers. He sees glimpses of so many chaotic lives. His mind starts to slip. He almost loses his life right then and there. Luckily, Bai Yan holds his ground, refusing to let those voices break his spirit. Then the visions hit. Bai Yan feels himself turning back into a human, just walking down a normal street. Suddenly, he's a caveman draped in animal skins, chasing a wild rabbit through the wilderness. Then he's a baby, then an old man, and then a woman. But through it all, Bai Yan remembers who he is. He's a soul from another world, a man who became a tree. He's been this massive tree for hundreds of years now. He never forgets, or more importantly, Bai Yan clings to the core truth that he is human. It's this one thought that pulls him safely through the nightmare. He feels his control over the power of faith reach a whole new level. Bai Yan pulls his consciousness out of the flames. A split second later, with just a single thought, the raging fire begins to condense. The flames melt into a golden liquid, and then they take the shape of a single tree branch. Bai Yan knew he'd done it. He let the flames die down. It was only now that Bai Yan had truly mastered the power of divine faith. No, Bai Yan felt it was more fitting to call it a godly art. Before, his divine faith could only coat the surface of his body, acting as a simple shield. But now his divine faith would transform at his very whim. With just a thought, it could become both armor and weapon. Deep in the mountains at the Snake Tribe, the few survivors who managed to escape finally stumbled back from inside their thatched huts. The tribe's people began to emerge one by one. Their happy, laughing faces went cold the moment they saw the men. What's going on? Where's the chief? Where is everyone else? The survivors looked broken, their lips trembling, but the words wouldn't come. Damn it, what happened? Pressed by the frantic crowd, the truth finally came out. The chief, he's dead. The rest of the men, they're all gone. Hearing this, the tribe was frozen in horror, and their totem, it struck us down. The man who said it was reliving the sight of roots bursting from the earth, dragging his brothers into the shadows. The others hadn't actually seen it, but they chimed in just to save face. That's right, it was all their totem. If that monster hadn't intervened, we never would have lost. A heavy silence fell over the crowd. Our men are fierce, but no man can stand against a totem. Just then a woman stepped forward, widow of the late Snake Tribe chief. My fellow tribespeople, the Tree Tribe has slaughtered our kin. We must have our revenge. If there were any other men left in the Snake Tribe, no one would have listened to a word she said. But as things stand now, the tribe is almost entirely made up of women and children. As the former wife of the chief, she's one of the few who still carries real authority. The crowd erupted in a fit of rage, shouting, "Revenge! Blood for blood, avenge our fallen kin!" But how could they possibly pull it off? The Tree Tribe is far too powerful, and this group wouldn't stand a chance of succeeding on their own. We must go to our totem, the Great Snake King, and beg him to descend from the mountain to fight for us. Since the Tree Tribe's totem has already made a move, then our own Great Snake King certainly won't be any weaker than theirs. This proposal instantly won over every single person there. The entire, leaving only a small handful behind to guard their home, set out to offer sacrifices to their totem and summon the Snake King. Nearly 100 people marched out of the village, heading deep into the heart of the mountains. That is where their totem resides, unlike the Tree Tribe, who live right at the foot of White Rock Mountain. The deity of the Snake Tribe, the Great Snake King, doesn't share his living space with mortals. Guided by ancestral memory, they pushed through the dense forest and scaled the jagged peaks. Halfway up the mountain, they found a cave with a massive gaping entrance. The pitch-black abyss felt ominous and terrifying, and a bone-chilling aura left everyone on edge. The Snake King is no ordinary totem spirit. Holding their breath, they entered the cavern together, their torches flickering against the oppressive gloom. As they ventured deeper into the darkness, the floor began to crawl with coils of venomous snakes. These snakes are coiled in tight circles, sprawled across the center of the cave, or tucked away in the crevices of the rock walls. The group weaves through them with extreme care, terrified of accidentally waking them up. Most of these hibernating vipers were actually raised by the members of the Snake Tribe. Others are just wild snakes from the deep mountains, but no one dares to disturb a single one of them. After all, these are the Snake King's own kin. If anyone dared to lay a finger on them and triggered the Snake King's legendary wrath, well, no one would make it out in one piece. As they push further into the darkness, white bones start appearing all around them. There are all kinds of remains, not just from wild beasts, but from humans too. Yet the group doesn't even flinch at the sight. They know exactly where these bones came from. They're nothing but the Snake King's leftovers. Those human remains come from the tribe's rituals, and those who willingly their bodies to feed the serpent. You won't find any elderly people in the Snake Tribe. Once they reach a certain age, they walk into this cave on their own accord, to sacrifice themselves to the totem they worship. Finally, the group reaches the very back of the cavern, and there they face their totem, a massive crimson-red serpent, coiled up and looming deep within the cave. Standing before him, humans look like mere ants. The Snake King is deep in a heavy slumber, and the sound of his breathing echoes like a roll of thunder. The group stands there frozen in awe, too terrified to step forward and wake him. Finally, the woman leading the group bites the bullet and calls out, "Great Snake King! Great Snake King!" Chapter 22, The Snake King's Attack. She calls out several times in a row, but there's absolutely no reaction. Just as she's about to lose hope, the Snake King's massive body suddenly shifts. He's finally awake. His eyes snap open, glowing like stars in the dark. Its massive coiled body began to uncurl and slide, making a heavy scraping sound. A giant snake head as big as a grown man stared right at the crowd, scaring everyone so much they didn't even dare to breathe. The snake's mouth hung open, flicking out a deep scarlet tongue, letting out a series of low, sinister hisses. But that's the only sound it could make, as it couldn't speak a single word of human language. Seeing the Snake King was finally awake, the leader's wife quickly explained everything that had happened. Once she finished her story, she pleaded with the beast, "Great Snake King, please come forth and destroy that flame tribe." Even though the Snake King couldn't talk back, he understood every word the woman said. He hissed once more, his cold eyes sweeping over every single person standing there. Suddenly, he lunged with his massive jaws wide open, spewing out a cloud of foul, poisonous gas. The people were completely defenseless, and the toxic mist swallowed them up instantly. Within just a few moments, every last one of them had passed out cold. That's when the Snake King really opened his mouth, swallowing them down one by one into his belly. After devouring nearly 100 people in a single sitting, his stomach was bulging and heavy. At long last, he'd finally had his fill. Having finished his meal, the Snake King coiled back up, shrinking away to continue his deep slumber. In the dead of such a freezing winter, there was no way he was going outside, let alone helping these fools get their revenge. To him, the people of the snake tribe were nothing more than livestock meant to feed him. He ate people all the time, so in his mind, this group was just another serving of food. As for that so-called power of faith, well, not every totem had the wisdom of Bai Yun. To this giant serpent, it was just a useless, annoying thing. He couldn't even wrap his head around why something like that was his body in the first place. As for the downfall of the snake tribe, he couldn't care less. From that woman's mouth earlier, he'd learned about the existence of another tribe. Come springtime, he would lead his serpent army straight to them. Once those primitives laid eyes on him, they'd have no choice but to crawl and offer up their food. And that totem the tree tribe worshipped, it was nothing more than a damn tree. A tree, huh? Imagine putting your faith in a tree. The Snake King flicked his tongue, finding the whole idea laughable. Those people even claimed the totem fought back. Did they think he was an idiot? How the hell is a tree supposed to attack someone? It doesn't even have a mouth. The Snake King yawned wide, coiled his body even tighter, and drifted into a comfortable sleep. Winter faded away, and spring finally arrived. The people of the tree tribe began gearing up for their most vital mission. Spring Plow Tribe was bustling with energy, but after the ambush during the winter, even during the busiest of times, Blackwood didn't let his guard down on patrols. The tribespeople channeled the water from the stream to irrigate their farmlands. White Rock watched the busy crowd, and the scene actually felt a bit familiar to him. On a bright and sunny day, White Rock suddenly noticed a dark mass looming in the distance. He narrowed his eyes, trying to see what exactly was heading toward the tribe. Leading the way was a colossal serpent, its massive body like a freight train, crushing the earth as it moved. And surrounding him was a swarm of snakes in every color, all different shapes and sizes, packed together in a massive writhing sea. A dark tide was rolling and surging forward. Bai Yen knew right away this was trouble. That massive serpent, it had to be the serpent tribe's totem. The tree tribe had completely crushed them during that winter raid. Everything had been peaceful. Bai Yin honestly thought the serpent tribe wouldn't show their faces again. He never imagined they'd wait until now to strike. And they didn't just come back, they brought their totem with them. But wait, why wasn't there a single person in sight? It was nothing but a sea of snakes. As strange as it was, Bai Yin knew they weren't here for a friendly visit. And with a swarm this massive, you could bet most of them were venomous. Against an army like this, his people wouldn't stand a chance. Bai Yin didn't hesitate for a single second. He ordered Mu to get everyone back inside the village immediately. Mu heard the command, even though he had no clue what was actually happening. But when the great tree god gives an order, there's always a damn good reason for it. Mu quickly sent out the patrols, rounding up the tribesmen who were out in the fields for the spring plowing. Among those rushing back to safety were a few men leading giant green oxen. They were in Green Ox tribe. Those folks worship a massive green ox. They're experts at raising them, and the tree tribe had always been on good terms with them. Since it was plowing season, they'd borrowed a few oxen to help with the work. Those outsiders were panicking as they led their beasts, terrified that the tree tribe was mobilizing to attack them. On the other side of the village, Bai Yen watched as the last of his people made it inside. It was time to defend his home. He reached out to his roots, which stretched under every inch of the tribe. He commanded them to burst through the soil at the perimeter. In the blink of an eye, a massive thick wall of roots surged upward. It held firm, blocking the incoming tide of snakes. Then Bai Yun spoke. His voice boomed so everyone in the tribe could hear him. Mu, take everyone in the tribe and all clansmen with bloodline powers get up on the wall. Any snake you see creeping closer, kill them on sight. Mu bowed deeply toward the man and said respectfully, "Yes, Lord Tree God." Wait, your totem can actually talk. Those outsiders leading their green oxen were completely blown away, staring at the towering tree with their jaws on the floor. Someone nearby laughed. That's the great tree god. Is it really that weird that he can talk? Doesn't your totem say anything? Faced with such a question, they didn't dare to utter a word. And honestly, they didn't even know how to answer. After all, their own totem was definitely silent. Bai Yan raised a wall of branches to shield the tree tribe. He didn't need to waste any focus on them. He had to concentrate on the massive serpent heading his way. Bai Yan's heart raced with a bit of excitement. This would be his very first fight against another totem. The Snake King led his swarm closer and closer. He'd spotted Bai Yan's massive frame from a mile away. But to the Snake King, it just looked like an oversized tree. Nothing divine or special about it at all. The tree tribe lay a small river, for the snakes to raid the village. They'd have to find a way across that water. Bai-yin had no intention of letting them over. He planned to take down the Snake King on the far bank. Bai-yin woke up the black turtle dozing in the river. Turtle, hold the line and stop those snakes from crossing. Suddenly a wasp flew out from Bai-yin's canopy. Bai Feng saw the ocean of snakes swarming toward them, and immediately yelled, "Boss Bai! It's that snake swarm from the other tribe. I've been watching them for a while now." Bai Feng rubbed his head awkwardly and said, "Oh, so the boss already knew." But then he got all fired up again. "Sweet. I thought I'd never get my revenge. But now there are so many of these pests right here. I'm gonna wipe every last one of them out today." Bai-yin knew he was just talking big, but he didn't call him out. Chapter 23, The Might of Faith. Everyone braced themselves for the fight. Their bloodline power surged, radiating intensely from their bodies. Just then, a yellow streak of light shot down from the sky. It was moving as fast as a lightning bolt. A long snake had just slithered out of the river, when that bolt of lightning slammed right into its head. With a sickening crack, the snake's skull shattered instantly. Without missing a beat after that kill, the shadow darted toward its next targets. Heimu called out to the group, his voice filled with excitement. "That's another guardian of the great tree spirit. But don't get careless. Everyone keep your guard up." Bai Feng was incredibly fast, boosted by the power of his bloodline. His attacks were absolutely devastating. The snakes couldn't even survive a single hit from him. However, as more and more of the swarm crossed the river, even Bai Feng couldn't take them all down by himself. Bai Feng glanced back at the river. He thought to himself, Boss Bai was right about that turtle. It really couldn't hold back the entire swarm on its own. On the other side of the Snake King and Bai-yin were locked in a brutal struggle. The beast had already shredded countless vines that Bai-yin had conjured. Looking at his severed tentacles, Bai-yin held back his other abilities for now. He focused all his energy on pinning the Snake King down. After all, he had plenty of faith power to burn. He could regrow those tentacles whenever he wanted. In a war of attrition like this, he could easily afford the cost. While Bai-yin kept the Snake King occupied, he kept a close eye on the rest of the battlefield. The Snake King's army was massive in number, but their overall strength was actually quite weak. 2/3 of them had already been wiped out by the black turtle at the river. The remaining third was being intercepted by Bai Feng, with Heimu and the others fighting like demons at the tree wall. Not a single snake managed to break through their defenses. The Snake King realized its kin were being slaughtered. The riverbank was littered with the bodies of its fallen swarm. Seeing the massacre of its kind, the Snake King completely lost it. It let out a series of deafening, blood-curdling roars. It thrashed its massive body with every ounce of strength it had left. Once again, it tore itself free from the constricting tentacles, coiling its massive frame into a tight circle. It reared its head high, ready to strike.